following that, we developed the Principal Broker Academy. And I think you are the third class. And we had our maiden class, our first class back in October of last year. And so, and then the second one I think was in Medford in January, February. So again, welcome. And again, my name is Deborah Gisriel. I'll be instructing day one, which we've divided into actually 2 half days. When we were live, we did it in 1 full day. So you guys are getting a half a day twice instead of a full day. So what I'd like to do now is to take a few minutes, and you received an email from Katie, who's on the line also, and it had a couple of attachments. And we're going to be following along on the student handout, which is the, I think it was the 4th in the handouts that you received. But what we're going to do first before we dive in here and have an intense 3 hours is I just want to go around the room and have you introduce yourself. And we've got, let's see, let me get to that. Normally when we're in a live environment, I would have you break out and meet 3 people and talk and share. So this time what we're going to be doing is Zooming, so everybody's going to have a chance to share with everybody else. So I'm going to go around the room, and I'm going to start with looking at my grid, Lisa. And what we'd like you to say is your name and your company name, where you are geographically in the state, and just a brief sentence about why you decided to take the Principal Broker Academy, and how long you've been a managing principal broker, even though there isn't technically a title or a license with that name on it. And so let's get started. Lisa.
So hi, I am Lisa Nishioka. I am the founder of Xanadu Real Estate. I've been a principal broker and owner of my company for the last 11 years. Started out 23 years ago with John L. Scott. I manage 4 brokers under me. And at this moment, I kind of wanted to keep my company small and just keep it just around family and just, you know, where I'm from Hawaii, so it's all about aloha, so we keep it tiny and so we can always be together and being able to share ideas. But I also service the areas of Raleigh Hills, all of Portland Metro, and as well as my agents too. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, welcome. And you're in the Portland area?
Yes.
Great. Okay, it looks like Dahi, did I say that right?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yes, I'm Dahi Good. I've owned my own company now since 2016. I am located in the city of McMinnville in Yamhill County, and my company is called Good Land Company, so I focus primarily on wine country properties. And I currently manage 1 broker who is just a first-time broker, and she's going gangbusters, so she's keeping me on my toes.
Great. And why did you decide to take the Principal Broker Academy?
Well, I think it's a good way to get some continuing ed credit in a focused course that I'm actually interested in.
Great. Okay, Randy, get over in the screen, Randy. Randy L. Shaw. We're watching you. Turn your mic on. Randy, Mike, turn your mic on. It's the little red thing. There you go.
Okay, sorry everybody. Good morning. I'm Randy Shaw, and I'm in South Central Oregon, Klamath Falls to be more precise. I wanted to take this course because I've got 40 brokers and it scares me to death to not know what to be doing. right? Plus, I think this has been needed for a long time, and I want to thank Deborah for taking the initiative to get this done. I think there has to be a separation between the broker and the principal broker. I also own the company. I've been practicing real estate for close to 26 years now, and I've been a principal broker owner for, well, I've been a principal broker for 4 and an owner for 5. And I was just joking about the scares me to death part. I'm fine. So
I think we're all scared to death, Randy. I think we're going to talk a little bit about that of, what are those things as managing principal brokers that keep us awake at night?
Yeah.
What are those things that you wake up going, ah? So.
Yeah, and with COVID here, and it's kind of added a different dimension to the whole thing. What should you go forward? Should you leave your office open? Should you close it? I mean, there's all those other dynamics that are part of that. But anyway, I'm really glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to learning some good things.
Glad to have you. Okay, I feel like Miss Judy in Romper Room. Heather, I see you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Heather Rich, and I'm with Home Smart Realty Group. Let's see. So we, let me see. How long have I been a principal broker? I'm reading your questions on here. I believe 3 years, could be 4. I'm not sure. It's been quite a ride. I co-manage with another managing broker, James Montgomery. Some of you might know him here in Salem, but we have offices in Corvallis and in Bridgeport and in Eastern Washington. We have over 340 agents. I primarily work with new licensees. I had mentioned earlier, I also teach pre-license at Chemeketa, and I'm a huge believer in continuing education and learning, and I'm excited about the opportunity for this class. James actually suggested it to me. I've been licensed since 2004. I think that's all.
Great, thank you, Heather. Next, I see Sonia. Did I say that right, Sonia?
You did, yes. Good morning. I'm Sonia Nepperud with Western Homes Realty Company here in Albany, Oregon, the heart of the Willamette Valley. I am pretty much a one-man show these days. I do not have any staff I manage. I have been licensed, this is almost embarrassing, since 1992, so 28 years. I've had my principal broker's license since 2003, which that's what, 17 years. I've been an owner since 1998, so I feel kind of like an old timer, but we can never learn enough. We can never be good enough at our job and industry. The education we get to pass the test has nothing to do with real life real estate application. We all know that. So I'm just here to make myself better at what I do and do some networking. Thank you.
Welcome, Sonia. And I'm just going to step in here. You're still a baby. I look at Carol, who's joined us in video, but I was licensed in 1976. So I'm going on 44 years. So, Carol, what's your number? I know you're like right up there with me, aren't you?
Hell no. No. Sorry. Hi, everybody. Carol Murray calling from Oak Grove, Missouri. I've been in the business since 1993 and been a broker, manager, licensee since 1997. So it's been a while, but not quite as long as you.
Yeah, I'm the old one in the room. Thanks, Carol. Hi, Patty.
I know.
Patty, you're next.
Hi, my name's Patty Millen. I've been a broker since '94 in Southern Oregon, Medford and Ashland area. And I just decided to start my own brokerage in April. I have a really highly effective small team. There's just 5 of us, but we rate high in the state and in the county. And I'd been with a large brokerage for a long time. And I just, with the new COVID situation and different things, I really wanted to restructure my business and be more efficient and cut costs. And so opened my own brokerage just a few months ago. Like I said, there's just 5 of us. And I love education and I need to do my hours. And I was talking to Colin Mullane, who had really suggested this. He's a friend of mine. And so I missed it last time. It sold out. I mean, got packed really fast. So I was really excited to be part of this.
Great. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, next I see Becky.
Hi, I'm Becky Shurton-Labe, broker with Columbia Gorge Real Estate. My sister Nan and I opened Nan Wimmers. You might know her.
I know Nan. Yeah, she's a good friend. Very
Yeah. So we own Columbia Gorge Real Estate here in the Dalles. We operate in the Gorge area. I've been a principal broker since I believe it was 2008, maybe 2007. My sister Nan is the managing broker at our company, but I may be stepping into that role as she spends a little more time enjoying some other parts of life. And we work on a team with Jorge Barragan, which is also in our meeting today. So the reason is just to sharpen some skills and learn things that I didn't know. So I'm looking forward to it. And I really enjoyed the commitment to excellence class that I just finished that this week. So excited.
Oh, congratulations. You're now officially a C2X. So you, and that was a prerequisite for the class, right? We'll talk about that a little later. I don't want to take that time right now, but congratulations on completing it. That's quite an effort.
And thank you for putting this on. It's great to have it online so we can actually stay focused in our business here and still get this education.
Yeah, thank you. So it looks like Cindy, you're next on my screen here.
Hi, I'm Cindy Hawkins Colley. I got my license in 1998 and worked with Windermere. I married shortly, into my career, but nobody knew me by my married name. Still, after 13 years, they still don't know me by my married name, so I always have to use Hawkins. The company I got my license with was Windermere. I was their secretary, and I just kind of looked around and thought, I can do that. So I went and got my license in 98, after 3 years, I got my principal broker's license. So I'd say it was around 2001. 2007, I started my own brokerage, which is Larson Realty Group, Inc. And I managed 2 other brokers. One works as an assistant to me, a licensed assistant to me, and the other, we're just gonna kind of team play. He's new to the agency. And the top 2 areas I enjoy most about being a broker is being able to make the decision, make the call. I spend a lot of time on the phone with OAR checking out my decisions, but it's been really rewarding. And that's pretty much it. Oh, I serve Seaside, Oregon, Clatsop County area along the coast here, kind of a destination type.
You're up near Astoria.
Yeah, Astoria, Seaside, Warrenton, all the way down the coast to Manzanita. And I've even gone as far as, Oceanside, because I spend a lot of time down there in Tillamook and that area. So I feel like that's an area I know pretty well too. So that's me.
Great, well, welcome. And I know Carol's gone like this with her watch because I know we're going to take a little longer doing this than we normally would. So Carol, shh, we're getting there.
Okay, thank you very much for the class.
Okay, next I see Jenny.
Jenny Turner. I'm the managing principal broker of Lovejoy Real Estate in Portland. I have 8 licensed agents, and I don't remember how long I've been a principal broker, but I got licensed originally in 1998. And I think as an individual broker owner, we have to always be looking for learning what is out there and being knowledgeable, because we don't always have as many resources right around us. So that's why I signed up to take this class.
Great. Well, welcome.
And Deborah, just to set the record clear, I was rebuttoning my shirt.
Oh, I thought you were pointing at your watch saying, move it along, girlfriend.
No, I was trying not to expose myself on
Oh,
the
okay, well,
video.
we would appreciate that also. Don't expose, yes. Hopefully everybody's at least dressed from the waist down, because, you know, the thing on Zoom now, who was it that teaches Zoom? We're all dressed up from the waist up. So, and how many of you rearranged your backdrop before you got on here today? So, okay, it looks like we've got Michelle.
Hi, good morning. My name is Michelle Buck. I'm managing principal broker of Remax Integrity here in Salem, Oregon. Just transferred from the Albany office, have about 47 brokers. Been a principal broker, I believe, licensed going on 4 years. Been in the real estate since 2005, love it. I'm here to take this class just for the fact of continuing education, learning more, and it's exciting. I love it. Love the education part.
Thank you, Michelle. Great.
You're welcome.
Looks like Jimmy.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Couture. I manage the Lake Oswego John L. Scott office. I grew up in a real estate family. My grandmother sold real estate since 1968 in the Tacoma, Washington area. I've been a managing broker in Washington since 2007 and moved to the Portland area 7 years ago. I've been a principal broker here and managing my office since I got here in 2013. And what I love most about managing is training new brokers and the deal doctoring. I love helping people find solutions. And I also teach the GRI classes for OAR, a couple of them.
Great. Yeah, I love the deal doctoring. Yeah, I love that phrase. Thanks for using that, sharing that. Okay, Chelsea, it looks like.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chelsea Dittmeyer, and I own Tall Firs Realty down here in Lane County, originally from Springfield, Oregon. And I have been in the business for about 7 years now, a principal broker for just a little bit over a year, own my company for about a year as well. I manage 2 brokers, and the reason I wanted to join this class, I'm a big advocate of our associations and just continuing education. Obviously, I'm a newbie. I'm super excited to learn from everybody here. So yeah, I'm just excited to get better at what I'm doing.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
So looks like I'm now to Lisa. Lisa, did you already go?
I was your number 1.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Claire.
Hi, everybody. My name's Claire Paris. I own Paris Group Realty, LLC in Portland, Oregon. I have now 10 brokers underneath me. I also have one other principal broker that helps me manage everyone. I'm here just because I mean, owning your own business, it's difficult to find people to bounce ideas off of. So that's pretty much the reason why I'm here. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's see. Is that Holly that's next? Hi, Holly. How are you?
I just unmuted, sorry.
Okay.
My name is Holly Eccles, and I'm with eXp Realty here in Salem, and I serve all of the Willamette Valley and the Central Oregon coast. I have been in real estate for 5 years, so I'm a real newbie. I do not yet have my principal broker's license. I'm currently working on that, and I chose to take this class for a couple of reasons. Number one, last fall, I learned from a colleague that it was a fantastic course and well worth all the time and energy. So that's number one. Number two, I'm here to learn as much as I can like everybody else. And I think it's going to be a fantastic supplement to the coursework that I'm doing right now. And my goal is to take the test at the end of August when this is all over. So I'm kind of doing it simultaneously, thinking it'll be a good complement to everything that's happening in the book. Although, like somebody else said, what we learn in the book is completely different from what actually happens in the real world. But anyway, it's nice to be here with y'all.
Yeah, Holly, you'll get to see why I am a little bit too.
I love it. Thank you.
All right, let me see. It looks like Gwendolyn.
Hello, I'm out of Southern Oregon with Patty, actually. Not in her group, though. I work for John L. Scott. I've been an agent for a little over 5 years. I've been involved in real estate for over 20, though, and as an investor and a LCDC commissioner assistant. So a lot of years in real estate, but this is definitely a different environment for me. I've taken this course, of course, to get my license. It's part of getting my license. And I'm going to start bringing on some team members here in the next year and a half. I've got one guy taking his test right now.
Great. Okay, so let me see. Is that John Coots? Hey, John.
Oh, I'm muted. Hi.
There we go.
Okay, so I am I do not manage. I have my PB license. I've had it for 3 years. I've been a broker in Eugene for about 16 years. I became a principal broker simply to just have the top license and the knowledge that comes with it. I anticipate being able to start my own company one of these days, and I just wanted to take this class so that I knew as much as I could and be as good of a broker that I can be. That's it.
Great. Well, welcome. Looks like Jorge. Did I say that right?
That's correct.
Hi, welcome.
Hi all. My name is Jorge Berrigan, and I am in the Columbia River Gorge, mainly the Dalles, Oregon. Just a short drive to Foot River and maybe an hour away from Portland. But I first got licensed in 2015, and I'm also a principal broker to be. And I thought this would be a great, start to that education and taking advantage that we could do it here in our office at home. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay, everybody can mute. There we go. Okay, did I get everybody? I see Jeremy is in the room. Jeremy, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jeremy Rogers. I'm the Director of Legal Affairs and Public Policy at OAR, and I'll just be hanging out in the background and available as needed as you are discussing various risk management issues. So thanks so much for being here, and look forward to participating.
Jeremy's our legal eagle in the room to make sure we're staying on track. Did I miss anybody? Or anybody who came in?
Yeah, Deborah, it looks like Becky joined us. Yeah.
Becky, did you just join us?
No, sorry, I was trying to adjust my volume and I accidentally hit the stop video, so we're all good.
Okay, great. All right, are you guys ready to get rocking and rolling here? So we're, like I said, we're gonna go through this at a rapid speed, but we're still gonna have time to do some breakouts if we can manage to get into our breakout rooms. But I wanna start just by talking a little bit about the power of risk management and why it's so important and how it really impacts the way that you guys manage and how you're going to interact with your teams and those that you are basically responsible for. And as we go through the next 8 hours together, I want you to kind of shift your thinking from manager to leader, because we're gonna paradigm shift you a little bit here into a more lead by example and be the leader and understanding the power of risk management as we go through the course here. And how to implement risk management ideas when you're making decisions. How risk averse are you versus how risk tolerant you are. So we're going to talk about how we actually measure some of those and how the depth of knowledge that we're going to talk about. And let's see here. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is the effectiveness and the logic of your policies and your procedures. How, as a company, be you small or large or mega company or a one-man operation, the importance of having policies and procedures in place so that what I find is that 90% of the time when you get questions or get engaged with your agents on matters, that most of the time, if you have a well-written policies and procedures manual, you can refer and defer back to that, and you'll be able to make those prudent and intelligent decisions. And then that will help you in how you interact with your agents. If you're very laissez-faire, it can come back to bite you. And so what we're trying to do is to establish some consistencies in how you interact with your agents. One of the quicksands that I see brokers, and when they call me for some guidance, principal brokers, is the challenge they have with treating all of their brokers equal. You know, we don't have favorites, right?
Excuse me, your voice is really crackly. It's hard to
it?
hear. Yeah, it goes in and out. It gets clear and then it gets really crackly for like a minute and a half.
I think what I'm going to do, let me see if I can get closer to this. Let's see if that works better. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Sure.
So, because I don't know if it goes like that. So, are we following? So also we're going to talk about how your environment really impacts the way you manage with your folks, and by being consistent and having those policies and procedures in place. And that risk management is the key, it's the priority when making business decisions.
Hey, Deborah, it's still kind of really crackling out a lot. So you're kind of going in and out. I don't know, maybe if your computers are too close to each other, that it's signaling off each other. I'm not sure.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to, I'm sorry, because we were fine earlier. Does everybody have their mics turned off?
Yes.
Okay.
Deborah,
Are you here?
Deborah, I notice when you move your hands is when it becomes the most crackly. So
then I will sit on my hands.
Sorry.
Okay, how are we doing now? Is that better?
Yeah, it seems to be, but it goes in and out. So we'll see.
Okay, so we're going to kick off here as part of what we're doing is we're going to do a fair housing because that's one of our still crackling. Gosh, I don't know what to do. What I might need to do is put on a headset.
I think that's the problem. I think it's
okay. So what we're going to do is in your handout, in your student handout that you received from Katie in the mail, in the email, there's a fair housing quiz. So why don't you guys take about 5 minutes and work through the quiz yourselves, and I'm going to work with Katie and get squared away here and maybe put a headset on and see how that helps. Are we
Hey,
good?
can you tell us where it is? Because we got like 4 packets of like 80 pages here. So
Okay, it's, oh, let me see here. Katie,
thanks.
it's the one that says, let me see here. I didn't send those, so it says.
It's on page 5 of the first packet that you sent. At the very top, it says fair housing, and then it says fair housing quiz.
Got it.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank
so
you.
that's the one we're going to be following today.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, because my computer says my speaker is not working. So
And we lost your PowerPoint. There you go.
So you can see that now.
You might want to put it into full screen.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Ah, there you go.
Giving you the answers. How you guys doing?
I'm done.
Some of these were really
What do-
hard for me. I don't know about the rest of you, but
Yeah, it's amazing how much I don't know.
Well, I think that's the point. When we do these exercises like this, when we start out with a quiz, that's one of the things that we want to do is to wake you up, if you will, and say, oh, because how many of you came into the room today thinking that you know fair housing pretty well?
I did. Yeah, I'm surprised at how many I had to guess at. It's shocking.
Okay, so what we're going to do then is we're going to go through the answers now just fairly quickly. And since I can't see you, because when I went to share my screen, I lost my grid of seeing you guys, unless somebody knows how to help me get that back. Because I'm not seeing you.
Deborah, did you click on what are you seeing? Are you seeing yourself?
I'm not, all I'm seeing is my PowerPoint. That's all that's on my screen is my PowerPoint.
Okay, so click on that and see double click on that and see what happens.
It's just taking it forward.
Deborah, I wonder if you hover at the top right of your screen, you should see some boxes that pop up, and that might be able to pull up a grid for the rest of us that are in the that are here with you.
Okay. Can you guys see each other?
I can.
And Deb, I can do a shout out if anyone's got any questions or something, because I can see them all from my laptop too.
Okay. All right, well, let's go through the quiz. And then those of you that are the high Ds in the room at about 10:30, we'll take a break and then we'll reconvene. So fair housing quiz, I'm going to go through these. Testers may approach a housing provider without any intention of procuring housing. In other words, they're going to fake you out. True or false, guys?
True.
That is absolutely correct. They don't need to, they can pretend. They can absolutely pretend to be a housing, in search of housing as a tester. Okay, the owner of a single family home is exempt from the federal fair housing laws if the owner does not own or have any interest in more than 3 single family houses at once.
That's false.
That's false. What? Really?
Really?
This is Jeremy. I just will add that in Oregon, this exemption does not exist. So this is
That's why
true
you're
for.
in the room, Jeremy, and that's why I was quiet, because that is true. So the answer federally, okay, so the answer federally is that is true. In Oregon, it is false.
Okay.
So if you put false, you're correct.
Okay.
Jeremy or Katie, if you're there, can you make a note that we might want to revisit this particular question? Purposes of Oregon.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. If you're making notes as we go along here. All right. An aggrieved party can file a complaint if they can prove they are a member of a protected class. They are financially qualified to obtain the property, were rejected by the defendant, and that the housing opportunity remained open after the rejection.
True.
You guys are, you're cautious now, aren't you?
Yeah.
True.
Is that true?
It's
Yeah.
true. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I had that right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Deborah, is it just up to a year and then anything after 12 months they can no longer file?
I'm sorry?
Are they able to file within the 12-month period and then after 12 months they're no longer able to file a complaint?
I think they could still file. Jeremy, can you answer that one? Because I didn't think there was a statute of limitations on this.
Yeah, I would have to look at the statute to see precisely, but I'm not. I don't think there's any 1 year statute of limitations issue on this. Yeah.
They have up to 2 years to file a lawsuit. So when you think about doing a complaint and then you want to escalate it, you have up to 2 years to file a lawsuit. So I think there is a statute of limitations on it.
On the filing of the lawsuit.
I expect that to be addressed and be expanded.
Yeah. Thank you, Carol.
Yep.
Okay, this one is, we usually get into some debate on this one. Discrimination needs to be intentional before a complaint can be filed.
False.
False, for sure false.
For sure false, yeah. Oftentimes discrimination is actually unintentional or out of a misunderstanding or lack of knowledge of the fair housing rules and laws. Ooh, okay, guys. This is where under federal fair housing laws, the protected classes are which one of A, B, C, or D?
I chose C, but I'm not sure.
D.
What's the difference between handicap and disability?
Well, I think that was just a fake out question because it wasn't the right answer. So, yeah.
Carol, you wrote these questions. Was that a fake out?
It's becoming like a politically correct term. We've already used in the federal guidelines, if you go in there and look, it still says the term handicap, which came from the origins when the United States was first here and people begged on the street with their cap in hand. And so it became handicapped, okay? And now we've been using a term for disability, has been supplanting that and using it. So it's basically what you see in the written law, but actually what the language is being used now is termed disability or physical impairment. That's the only difference.
And so this is Randy, and so age is not a protected class, is that right?
For federal.
Okay.
The additional categories that exist under state law, under the State Fair Housing Act, include a specific call out of sexual orientation, which has been interpreted to also include gender identity between sex and sexual orientation. Combine those, or both also encompass gender identity, and then marital status, in addition to familial status, is specifically called out in Oregon, and also source of income is specifically called out in the Oregon statute. but age is not.
What does that mean, source of income?
Discriminate against someone because, for example, they're receiving Section 8 vouchers or federally subsidized payments or disability payments or anything like that.
So are gay people protected in Oregon?
Yeah, gay people are specifically protected in Oregon. Our statute specifically calls out sexual orientation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So Jeremy, does that source of income, just for my curiosity's sake for Oregon, what if I had a reputation that was not savory, that was not possibly acceptable to the general norm? Maybe I'm a drug dealer and it's legal drugs. I mean, is that source of income period, regardless, not just for Section 8, or is it because someone may not want to rent or sell to me because they don't like the way I make my money?
Yeah, so the way the statute defines source of income in Oregon is that source of income includes federal rent subsidy payments and any other local, state, or federal housing assistance, but source of income does not include income derived from a specific occupation or income derived in an illegal manner. So it does not include what you're talking about. It's more focused on the fact that a person is receiving some form of housing assistance.
Got it.
So in that Jeremy, just to be clear, if I sell cannabis, at a shop outside of my home, not in my home, but let's just say at a different location, then in the state of Oregon, the landlord could deny me the ability to rent that house because of that source of income.
Randy, sorry, my computer froze for a second at the beginning of your question. Could you please repeat it?
Yeah, sure. So if my source of income is a cannabis dealership, and let's say that cannabis dealership, the shop itself is not out of my home, it's in a different location, then if I'm understanding this correctly, the landlord at that point could say, I'm not going to rent to you because your source of income is cannabis. Am I correct there in the state of Oregon?
Yeah, so Oregon's fair housing law does not specifically tell you that you cannot do that. Yeah.
Got it, Randy? All right. Federal fair housing exemption categories include, what's your answer? What say you guys?
Religious organizations?
I don't know what Miss Murphy's exemption is.
Yeah.
That's the boarding house. The boarding house rule, Mrs. Murphy's boarding house.
Oh, I don't know. I put private clubs. I don't know.
But they're all.
Oh.
So all of the above are falling in one way or another under the exemption categories under fair housing. And when we do a fair housing, 3 hours of just fair housing class, we do a little bit deeper dive here. So if you're feeling uncomfortable with this, I would suggest taking one of the 3-hour, NAR has some really good ones, fair housing, so that if individually you feel the need for a deeper dive there, some great classes out there. And right now, considering the environment that we're in, you're going to start to see a lot more fair housing, diversity type classes coming out.
So Deborah, what is Miss Murphy's?
Miss Murphy's is the boarding house exemption that if you're living in the house and you're renting out rooms, that there are some exemptions that would apply. That Mrs. Murphy's was the boarding house that this particular amendment to the law was based on. That Mrs. Murphy, because she owned the boarding house, she could have some discriminatory practices in who she allowed to come into her home. That was a boarding house.
So Deborah, does it apply to duplexes and fourplexes where she resides but owns the entire building?
I don't believe so, Carol. I think that's a great question, but I think it's if it is an existing one structure with rooms. But that's a great question. I don't know. Do you know?
Well, in Missouri, it was upheld for a fourplex.
That the exemption, if you lived in one.
She lived in the fourplex and she was able to determine who could move in where. And that's why I was just curious for Oregon.
I don't know. Is there case law on that, Jeremy?
Well, Oregon has its own version of Miss Murphy's exemption that's so sort of independently of how Oregon courts would interpret federal law. The Oregon law limits it. So in Oregon, the only Miss Murphy's exemption that exists is if the landlord can discriminate on the basis of sex, sexual orientation, or familial status when renting space within a single family residence if the owner actually maintains and occupies the residence as their primary residence and all occupants share some common space with the residents. So Oregon's is a much tighter exemption than the federal law.
And I think that's great.
Right. We might want to make a note to add that next time. The definition of disability includes both physical and mental. Both physical and mental.
Yes, true.
Absolutely. Yes. As a matter of fact, some of the opinions actually do say physical or mental handicap, some of the descriptions referring to this particular law. Okay, disparate treatment, which is the disparate meaning that if one group is affected more unevenly than others. So disparate treatment is intentional acts of discrimination directed at those protected by law. True or false? True. Meaning that treatment means that you're affected more negatively than the larger group, a disparate result. Anything to add to that, Jeremy?
Well, just that really there's sort of there's two types of discrimination that fair housing laws recognize. One is disparate treatment, which is directly, intentionally treating people differently. And then there's disparate impact, where you're not doing it intentionally, but the effect is to discriminate. And both the federal law, the courts have interpreted the federal law to allow both types of, to prohibit both types of discrimination. And in Oregon, the statute specifically calls out both types, including disparate impact. This question is about the intentional acts, but also keep in mind that unintentional acts that have the effect of discriminating are also prohibited.
And that was one of the recent cases on that, as I recall, was the landlord no longer being able to use criminal records as a qualifier for renting or not renting to someone, that the disparate impact was negative toward a certain class. Do you recall that, Jeremy?
Yeah, and those are the types of things that typically come up. And what I would expect is that class of things that are recognized as creating disparate impact is going to grow. So it's really important for folks to keep in mind the secondary effects of whatever action they're taking, because that's likely to continue to expand.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, steering. Steering is when, oops, sorry guys. Steering is when, which one? I don't want to read all these. The real estate broker makes decisions for buyers or renters about where they should live. In other words, steering is when you direct someone to a particular area. It really started back when blockbusting, or steering is when you're taking somebody to a particular community based on race, color, creed, sex, national origin, or familial status. So The practice was, I'm going to use Baltimore as an example because that's where some of the first actual cases came out of, was brokers would intentionally direct buyers to certain neighborhoods based on the racial composition of those neighborhoods. So that's when the word steering and blockbusting became common terms. Any questions on that? Okay, Title 7 prohibits property owners from refusing to make reasonable modifications to the dwelling to accommodate a tenant's disability. This includes which one of the below?
C. Oh.
No, you're right. Exactly. Any questions on that one? Okay, disclosing information about a property or neighborhood's population, which is part of any protected class, is a discriminatory housing practice prohibited by law.
True.
True. Yay. 1 year is allowed to file an alleged discriminatory practice complaint. Here's the answer to that one. True. We talked about this earlier. Now, where did the 2 years come from, Jeremy?
I think one of the questions here, this one is referring to filing a complaint with the government, with the agency that administers the Fair Housing Act, and then the 2 year is related to filing a claim in court. But I need to look. I don't have those off the top of my head, so I need to look into those and could follow up. But Carol may be able to confirm whether I'm correct on that.
You there, Carol?
Lawsuit, 2 years for the lawsuit. So this is the
2 years for the complaint, or 2 years for the lawsuit, 1 year for a complaint. And the complaint is filed with who?
HUD.
HUD.
HUD, right.
Yeah.
I was asking the group, not you two. But thank you for stepping up there. Okay, fair housing regulations prohibit the use of the words "no children" in an advertisement. True, of course.
True.
Yeah. Which of the following statements is true?
D.
Real estate advertisements may not state an explicit preference, limitation, or discrimination based on familial status. And isn't this the one also, Jeremy, where Oregon takes it one step further and says marital status?
Yes, Oregon does say marital status. And let me just throw in a thing here, because one of the questions we get a lot related to coronavirus is around limiting the number of people touring the home. And folks ask, well, can I say that children are not allowed to tour the home because we're trying to limit the number of people? And I think the best solution to that issue is to not specifically say that children are not allowed, but to just put a limit on the number of people who can tour the home generally because of social distancing requirements. Yeah, rather than saying specifically not to have children tour the home.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what the answer to number 9 was?
C.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I had to go back. Okay. Now in your binders, Katie, are you ready to do breakouts with the group? Are you prepared for that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you just let me know how many people you want per room.
I think let's do, what do we have, 20 people? Let's do 5 groups of 4.
Perfect. I'll get that set up and I'll be ready in just a minute.
Okay, thank you. So what we're going to do, guys, we've got these, the case studies. This is your opportunity to work together in your in some groups, and there's some case studies that you're going to find in your binders on page, let me see here, page 7. And we have 5 case studies. So we'll have 5 groups of 4. And we'll let you know when you get into your rooms. If you're in room 1, take case study 1. If you're in room 2, take case study 2, and so on. Are you
Deborah?
ready? Uh-huh.
So I put 4 people per room and one has 5. And
That's
I
fine.
have 4 breakout rooms.
Okay, then we'll do 1 through 4. So number your rooms 1 through 4. Break them into the group and give it 5 minutes, and then we'll get them back here.
Perfect.
And what you're
Okay.
going to do is each group knows how to do a case study. You're going to review the case, and you have a question. Each one of the case studies actually has a question for you to answer as the group. We'll reconvene, and then each one of the groups will review their case study. And we'll go through these pretty quickly. Okay? Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Katie?
Okay, I opened up the rooms and the attendees are going.
Great, thank you. So Katie, you're left, right?
I don't know how to get in there.
Yes, I'm still here. Carol, I didn't assign you to a breakout room.
Okay, cool. Because it just pops us straight into the breakout, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So while they're in their breakout rooms, I want to get myself restructured here because I lost the one screen, Katie. So I need to get back in, okay?
Okay.
We have a picture to post if that happens with me, Katie. But I could take a picture of a China troll that I have in my cabinet. Do you think that would be a good idea? Just like have that in front.
That could be funny.
Or of my cat. I could do that. I could have all sorts of interesting photos up there. How you doing, Jeremy?
Good. Yeah, how are you? It's good to see your face.
Yeah, my face. I like it further back.
Yeah.
I'm not like being on top of this sucker. Yeah. When
I sit too close, but whatever. It is what it is.
I use mine more for emphasis.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But no, I'm going to put mine up on boxes so it's higher.
Yeah.
And making sure that I'm looking at the camera because you have a tendency to look down, right, to see here, and you're not really talking. And
Yeah.
it's kind of fun to have the experience as a learner here to see what they're seeing. And
Yeah.
what I can do. So when I practice on Monday again, we can whip right through it. And that'll be good. Has it been wacko there in Oregon? I've been watching you closely.
Oh, I've been certainly keeping busy, and we have as an association just because of all of the guidance we have to provide to our members. But the real estate activity has been continuing. We haven't seen a huge downturn, but there's a lot of new rules to follow and trying to help keep people safe. So.
Well, the market's been exploding here.
Yeah.
Even with COVID. It's been wild. We've had a lot of people doing virtual tours or they go in with their phone and then they go around while the people are standing outside using things like join.me and here, see what's on mine. And it's really been kind of fascinating to see how you adapt. But they've been doing more closings here than we've been seeing in a long time, and definitely a seller's market. Have you been safe there? Has your neck of the woods, we've had a lot of, if you've been seeing anything in the news, Kansas City has had some disruptions about 30 minutes away from where I live, where most of the activity is. But have you been seeing much in your town?
In terms of?
Just activity, rioting, people.
Oh, yeah. Portland, of course, has been, Portland is nonstop. It's been every night since the George Floyd murder. So And there's a huge debate going on about how to handle it, obviously. And our legislature passed some police reforms, but the city, most of the rioting and protesting is going on in the city. And generally, it's peaceful protest, except a small group that continues to do bad things. And then a huge disagreement and debate among the leadership in the community about whether the police is addressing that appropriately. So that's been, and it just kind of almost feels like a no-win situation.
And you don't know what to do, right? You don't know what to do. Because if you decide to go there and confront or then become this, then you escalate, right? So how do you have a reason? What happened to having reasonable conversations again on some of this stuff? It's just fascinating.
Oh, it's crazy how we've gone, how our inability to have conversations about these types of things has devolved over the last several years. I mean, I'm not that old. I haven't been around for that many periods of social change, but it seems to me that the rapid devolution of our ability to reason with each other on dealing with complex problems is very alarming to me.
I kind of think the big thing is that even as I noticed with kids, or if I go into high school, they're not taught how to problem solve, right?
Yeah.
The answer, this is right or wrong, but to have an issue and to be able to work through it in a logical and a collaborative way. No, this is what I've always had, and this is what I want, and so give it to me. And I chat with people. I say, well, you raised them, you know.
Yeah.
Paying attention to what they were learning in school and didn't give them the ability to think outside the box or about being respectful.
Yeah.
Step back. We had someone here that was told at their business that they needed to apologize for being Caucasian.
Right.
I mean, what happened here? And they said, absolutely not. And they said, well, you might lose your job because of that. And they said, what? You know, and we don't know. It's like I am flabbergasted and not quite sure what's going to happen. You just
Yeah. No, I know. I've been reading up on this a lot to try to understand it. And, you know, and I think to your point about the approach that people take today, I mean, I think, and younger people in particular, I mean, I think part of the issue is that the theory around all of this, I think, is in part that by approaching problems the way we have in the past, we're perpetuating, right? And so therefore, let's not do that. And I think that we have to take a step back and say, well, appreciate that, and there's a point to that, and there's some validity to that. However, there's also validity to approaching problems logically and reasonably, and in ways that maybe are the ways that the dominant culture has approached them in the past, but that doesn't mean they're completely invalid. And so let's come together and talk about how to solve this, recognizing that everyone's got some valid points here.
And that's legitimate. You know, we know that there's always 5 sides to a story.
Yeah.
Right? 5 sides of this thing. So now let's hear it out. Allow people to put that on the table, because you'd make, I hope, better decisions when you have more information, right? Just make better decisions. But it has just been truly, I never thought in my lifetime I would see this. And now that I don't have a platform anymore, I'm no longer out there speaking. I'm no longer, you know, getting this information. And this was one of the reasons why my husband wanted me to come off the road, because he said it's getting dangerous. He said, you don't know what you're going to step into now. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. And you know, what's been crazy in Portland is that, I mean, there's this huge war going on between the police department and the political leaders in the state. And honestly, one of the first things that actually happened was right when the protests began, the police chief, who was a white woman, actually stepped down, and she voluntarily stepped down and said, I think you actually need a different leader. And she appointed a deputy who is a black man to be the police chief. And that was, I think, a very humble and actually significant move and gesture that was a good move. However, now that individual is the chief and trying to have conversations and even when things get violent, the politicians are sending letters to the mayor, the the Speaker of the House sending letters to the mayor saying, you're not dealing with this right. You're letting your police move to aggressive tactics too quickly. The police feel like they're really being very restrained compared to their traditional practices. And then, so the police will come out and do like a briefing and try to tell their side of the story, and then politicians will write letters and op-eds, but it doesn't seem like anyone's coming together to just say, how do we allow people to protest and keep our community and businesses safe? So
I know I don't want to be a social worker sent into a marital dispute. I'm just saying, I don't want to go there. Not going to happen. Or knock on the door of someone who's so high on methamphetamine, because we're the capital of methamphetamine here. I mean, I was already almost held hostage once with that whole situation, gun pointed at my head, the whole 9 yards. It's like, no, because I'm going to react a little differently now that I've already been through it and don't have the surprise factor, versus those that have no experience. When someone resorts to a real aggressive physical response to you trying to intervene, it's going to be, we will hopefully find something much better coming out of this whole thing. Just like in the 60s, started it. We've already been through that. We burned the bra. We were worse off for it. Now we wear them again when you get older. Just ask any 60-year-old. You don't go around. Just saying.
Well, I don't wear one because it pulls the wrinkles out of my face.
There you go. And that's probably too much information for you today. All right. I'm gonna.
This is in the room.
It's fun. I'm gonna buzz out, Deb. I just wanted to kind of see how this clicked together, how they go to the rooms on and
participate. Thank you, Carolyn. And in spite of that initial technical difficulty, now I'm good. I've got my 2 screens. They're both working now. We're going to bring them back.
Make sure you look at the camera like you're doing right now.
Yeah, I restructured my
off to the side.
Yeah, that was because the one computer went off, and this one. Now I'm back. Now I'm back in my. That was a little technical snafu there. So.
Well, that's why I'm going to practice on Monday morning and keep clicking in and out and making sure I've got it. So,
yeah.
Does it help?
And this is the first time I've done it with 2 screens. So I got discombobulated on which screen I was working from. So now I got it. So.
Yeah, I'm going to bring my husband's laptop, and it's going to be a participant. So it's going to be a KM participant, and then I can bring up all their faces over there and then just keep that one. Talking to.
So now I am where I need to be. So Katie's going to start bringing them back into the room. I got you all back. I see your smiling faces. Bye, Carol. Thank you. See you next week. So everybody coming back in. Jeremy, you're going to hang in there while we go through these case studies.
Yeah.
So what's happening now is y'all are popping back in from your breakout rooms. How was that?
That was good.
And I got squared away while you guys were in your room. I got resituated, and hopefully you can hear me okay, and you can see me okay, and I can see you, and so we're all
good.
We're good to go.
The question we had was we weren't sure whether we were supposed to come back when we were done into the main meeting, or you were going to call us back. So that was the only.
Katie was going to come and get you. So you're back. So Katie's bringing everybody back now. Aren't you, Katie? There we go. See? Everybody's popping back in now, and I see all of your smiling faces on one screen, and I've got my PowerPoint on the other screen, and I'm finally back where I need to be. So Holly knows that I do a lot of in the cloud teaching and training and everything, and this little bit of jumping from 2 computers kind of got me a little off this morning. So, but you guys are very forgiving, right?
Absolutely.
I was promised you were very forgiving when we.
You're doing great, Deborah.
We're hanging in there. So Carol and I spent hundreds of hours together working on this curriculum, and so it was interesting when we would take the federal and the state of Missouri, because that's where her point of view is, and then Oregon. And that's why we like having Jeremy in the room, because he brings some of our content tends to be heavy on the federal, and Jeremy brings us that balance of bringing that Oregon perspective. So I think we have one more group coming back in.
Everybody is back now.
Everybody's back. Okay, group number 1. Did you appoint? Oh, I forgot to tell you to appoint a spokesperson, or you can all talk. We're a democracy here. So who was group 1?
Me and
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Did you guys come up with a?
Yeah, and I think we picked Heather, right, to be our spokesperson. Okay, so how do you want to do this, Deb? Do you want us to read it out, or?
Yeah, because everybody's not had an opportunity to read it. So I'm going to let you guys read it, because you're going to get tired of hearing my voice over the next 2 days. So why don't you go ahead, Lisa, read it, and then tell us what your group said they would do next.
Okay, so
go ahead.
Matt, a Hispanic man, has several telephone conversation and email exchanges with Sarah, a new to the business broker in your office, when finally an office visit is set. Before the meeting, Sarah shares how excited she is that Matt will be a new buyer client for her. You happen to be in the lobby and observe Sarah as she meets Matt for the first time. It's obvious by her facial expressions and body language that her attitude towards Matt has changed significantly. Her responses to Matt are curt and borderline rude. Later that day, you receive a call from Matt, who complains about Sarah's behavior, which made him feel embarrassed and discriminated against. What are the next steps that you should take? So as a group, we kind of all agreed that, apologizing to the client is a critical step, because a lot of them don't feel that they've been heard. So first thing would be to apologize, thanking him for the call, and then offering to bring in another agent to represent him, or giving him the option, but then also addressing it with the agent as well on the side. And then it would steer us into putting in more education in place to bringing in fair housing laws, because it's obvious that our agents aren't following that. So just generate refresh and get everybody on board with education again.
Okay. So was that enough?
No, Heather, help, Sonia.
I'm here. I'm here. So was it enough for us, our answer?
Yeah, because remember now you're coming at this from, you own the company.
Mm-hmm.
You have a risk situation in front of you. So you're now in a situation where your company's at risk because of the behavior of one of your agents.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to think of it from that perspective, that now you're looking on this situation. What else could you or should you have done?
Gotcha.
I'm not sure, because I feel like, we could invite him into the office to speak with us and ask him if he's interested in speaking with another agent, and reassuring him that what he's saying is important to us, and that we do intend to follow up with the agent and offer her more education in regard to this subject. Definitely. I'm not sure what else as far as risk management. That's why we're here.
Yes.
Oh, well,
Could let the agent go.
Right. Well, there's also called going too far, okay, with the customer or the client. So sometimes I'm going to mention Shakespeare here, the lady doth protest too much, methinks. Sometimes you can overtalk it. I think the best advice here is to acknowledge him when he does call, because he feels that he's been slighted or discriminated against in some way. explain perhaps your company policy.
Ah, good one.
So remember early on when we were first starting out, we said policy, 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 policy of procedures, and consistency. So our agent here, she's fairly new, but one of the lessons learned here for her is going to be consistency in treating every single person who walks in that door the same and without reaction or overreaction. Because I think her behavior is what started the whole thing going. And then kind of your training opportunity here as a company owner is to explain to her, lovingly, of course, that, here's what happened. Now, what's your lesson learned? What can you do differently next time? And then making sure that you've educated her or him on the importance of consistency and treating every single person the same when they come in that door or when you meet them somewhere.
Do you really think that you can train somebody?
Huh?
Do you think you can really train somebody to not be racist?
Then they shouldn't be
Then they're
there.
not going to work for me. I don't think.
Yes, they would.
I think that we have laws, and if you're going to work in my office,
yeah,
and I'm speaking to you guys now as managing principal broker company owners, okay, that if you're going to work in my building or my office, and my license is on the line for your behavior, then I'm going to make certain that your behavior doesn't put my company or me at risk. And that's what we're talking about when we talked about risk, managing your risk. Okay, now what was your risk when that customer walked in the door and was greeted with what they felt was discriminatory behavior? So,
hey, how are you, Ryan?
I'm sorry?
So Deborah, this is Randy. So
hey, Randy.
One of the things we haven't, I'm going to take Sarah's side of this thing for a second. So we don't know what exchange took place between she and Matt, okay? Maybe there were some offensive things said to her. This is not clear right here.
Okay, okay.
And so you really do have to get, you need to get stories before, but I agree with the policy issue. I think the policy has to be in place, and every broker needs to understand that if they haven't read the policies and procedures, they need to do that. Okay?
Exactly.
Because that's where the heart of this is. What we don't know here, though, is what happened between Sarah and Matt when they were out.
It says that they were observed when she first met him.
Yeah, they've never been together before he walked in the door, Randy.
And they were observed at that point.
There was no pre-time. He walked in the door and met her for the first time.
I got you. Yeah, I was thinking that they'd already been out and showed how.
That would be a different case study.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
but I think what I want to bring us back to here is the importance of a company policy. And so what if he did go file a complaint? What is and I want you to write these words down. What is your defensible position? What is your defensible position?
Right.
Okay, so if he filed a complaint and you're the one that has to go before the panel, what is your defensible position to defend and to minimize your risk? You're going to be able to show your policy. That's right. A written policy that she has signed.
That's right.
You're going to be able to document that you've held frequently and often fair housing education in your office, that you talk about it in your sales meetings, that you're going to keep a list of the topics that you talk about in your meetings, so that when you're in front of that panel, they're going to say to you, why did she behave that way? You're going to have your defensible position say, well, gosh, here's what we do and what I do as a company to prevent that. So yes, we will take it under advisement and we will do more education. So see where we're taking fair housing. Now we were talking about fair housing from a knowledge standpoint, now what we're going to do through these case studies that we're doing is from not just a knowledge standpoint, but put your principal broker manager owner hat on.
Yeah.
And what's the risk now to your company on
Right.
that behavior?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good job, group number 1.
Yay.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, group number 2. What would you do?
Okay, well, Holly did the reading. So Holly, why don't you read the question for us?
Okay, here we go. Rick is 34 and has Down syndrome and has recently been cleared to live on his own. He is very interested in renting an apartment in a complex that your organization manages and has the financial ability to afford the apartment. You accept the application and are getting ready to have him occupy the property. Through a conversation with Rick, you learn that Rick, in a few months, is planning on marrying a 25-year-old young lady who has a severe developmental disability that doesn't allow her to be on her own for any length of time for safety reasons. Question, what concerns would you have in leasing the property? And then number 2, you have accepted the application. Do you have the right to withdraw that acceptance because of the capacity of additional occupants that may move into the apartment a year later?
What say you, group 2? Jeremy?
Chelsea, why don't you dive in for us and start the conversation on question number 1?
2. We're on 2.
Well, but it's a 2-part question.
Hey, Randy, we can only see your shoulder.
So okay, thanks, Randy. I'll jump in. So the first question.
Everybody else mute, please. Everybody else mute, if you don't mind. Thank you. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Okay, thank you. So what concerns would we have in leasing this property? The biggest thing that we talked about was the safety concerns, just to make sure that the property was going to be safe enough for them. And so that's when we started to discuss a little bit about what is something reasonable for the owner to do in the property for some safety measures, bars, things like that that would help them. Then we started talking about who pays for those things. Does the owner pay for those things? Does the renter pay for those things? And the whole process of how that would work. So that the safety was the biggest concern that we had for renting the property out.
Okay.
The other issue that we had, though, was acknowledging that initially when the gentleman applied for the apartment, it wasn't clear whether or not there was going to be an additional tenant living there as well. And so because that person, the wife is going to be added on after the fact, while it may not be the right thing to do, would he have the ability to, or would the property manager have the ability to rescind the acceptance based on the fact that an additional body was going to be living there and possibly a caregiver was going to be needed, or, we don't know the circumstances of the safety issues that this gal has. And so, are we prepared to take on that, or is the property prepared to take on an additional person with these issues that we don't quite know what they are, and potentially a third body if a caregiver is going to be there? And then again, the fact that that wasn't necessarily disclosed from the get-go, is that an out? Again, whether it's right or wrong, is that a possibility if the property owner chose not to move forward with this particular tenant? It doesn't seem right, but anyway, so there's some unknowns.
Well, okay, I'm going to go all the way back to, and Jeremy, welcome back here. All of those concerns still do not give them the right to discriminate, because the question is, under physical or mental handicap, you cannot discriminate, period. So, and you have to make reasonable accommodations. So from a risk management standpoint, as a company owner, as an office manager, what is your instructions on this to your agent?
Well, so in relation to the second question of that two-part question, there's got to be a contract again that is specific to how many people can occupy the house, not based on any of their discriminatory characteristics, but just how many people can occupy the house. And once that contract is initiated, now I'm just speaking into question 2 here, once that's initiated, then should there be a caregiver or somebody else that comes on the scene that needs to live there, then you have to go back to your contract. And
But is somebody living, is a caregiver a reasonable accommodation?
Well, and that's a good question, Deborah. But if you're well,
Yeah, I want you guys to
is
think
if
a
the
little
contract
deeper.
that 2 people are going to live there, and they've signed that contract, and then 6 months later or a year later they say, "Oh, now we're moving a caregiver in," then are there accommodations within that contract, the rental contract, for a third person to occupy the house?
But back to the overall topic, which is fair housing and discrimination. Okay, we're going to contract now and all of that. We need to go back to, this is a fair housing discrimination issue question. Does it matter in reconsidering all of those things because they're a physical and mental handicap issue here? Are they protected?
I mean, they're absolutely protected 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what we did start out with that, Deborah, where we talked about how the application, if they applied and they were approved, it honestly, nothing matters based on their disability or what have you. I mean, they're 100%, you approve that application and nothing. The reason we started talking about safety issues and things like that was just to try and help out, to be real honest, but it really has no has no bearing on whether or not the applicant was approved or not, because the applicant clearly was approved for the home, and so you don't go back on that. And ultimately, if they don't ask for it or don't need help with any reasonable requests, I mean, it's completely on them. They can do what they want, in the property and however they want to live. I just think, being responsible, it would be good to have that discussion with them on how, whether as a landlord or as a property manager, how we can help in that situation.
Exactly, but you can't deny them access. That's
correct. We all, we agreed on.
We all agree that from a risk, because remember our overall topic today is risk management, managing risk.
Right.
And now we're talking about your vicarious liability as an owner. When I say vicarious liability, I mean your liability, even though you're not the one taking the action. Okay, so it's your butt on the line when that agent does something that says, well, I'm not going to rent to them because of safety reasons, but yet the underlying reason is that they are protected. Okay, Jeremy, Mr. Legal Beagle, anything to add?
No, I think that's right. And, I would separate this into sort of two components, right? The first is the leasing of the property initially. And of course, on that front, you shouldn't change any of your plans around leasing it. You should move forward. And then really you have a period of time now to work with them on reasonable accommodations if those are needed in the future. And so, if it's not going to be until a year later that they might need some additional assistance, that gives you quite a bit of time to work with them to figure out if there is a reasonable accommodation. At some point, the reason why the term reasonable accommodation exists is because it has to be reasonable, it has to be doable. So if it really wouldn't work out in the end, I mean, there just isn't space, and there's safety concerns and other issues around like the number of people in the property or other things, you can deal with those if they're not, if those aren't reasonable accommodations. But in this situation, you let them in initially, and then you have quite a bit of time to work with them and hopefully come up with what that reasonable accommodation would be if they do actually request some additional assistance.
And a quick question for you. So some of those reasonable accommodations, let's just say that some of them can't be done. As a landlord or a manager, do you have the right to then, I mean, it really comes down to them. If those reasonable accommodations can't be met, then they still have to be the ones to walk away, correct? Because we can't say, oh, these accommodations can't be met, so we can't do this. We can't rent to you. Am I asking that question correctly?
Well, I mean, if you can't kick them out because you disagree about the accommodations, but you know, they can't, if there isn't a reasonable accommodation, and then they just go ahead and invite more people to move into the apartment, even though you didn't agree that was a reasonable accommodation, you know, you don't have to just stand for that. But at that point, you know, if there's a disagreement about what is a reasonable accommodation, it's really wise to talk to an attorney who's got a lot of experience and understanding where the line is typically drawn on these issues.
Right.
So you can know if you're in a defensible space there around what you believe is reasonable and how far you're willing to go.
Right.
So who actually determines what's reasonable?
A judge.
Well, yeah, if they filed a fair housing complaint, then you know, as we said earlier, they would first file that with a HUD, and then HUD would go through an administrative process, and then it could also end up in court. And so, you know, the agency and the court will ultimately decide, but there's a lot of precedent around that issue, and that's where an attorney is helpful because they understand what that precedent is. You know, attorney who has expertise in this particular issue.
And there's some case law on this, Jeremy, and there's some in the rules. There's some what's the word I'm thinking of? There, what's reasonable? Let's say a railing and a ramp is reasonable, an elevator is not. So, you know, kind of giving you, you know, what is reasonable accommodations. And if, of course, I'm giving extreme examples, but you can see that it could be left to interpretation what is reasonable, and cost can certainly factor in. And is the building even accommodate the reasonable accommodations? So. Good job.
No, Deborah is correct that the statute itself and the rules around it have some
defined
language and definition around what was not reasonable, and then of course there's always going to be situations that don't fit perfectly within those, and you're going to have to interpret. And again, that's where an attorney can be very helpful.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. A ramp or a railing is reasonable by just common sense. An elevator would not be, and then you have everything in between, which could result in interpretation by judge. Correct. Yeah. All right. Good job. Okay. Number 3. Who was that?
I don't know everybody's name that was in the group. I was one of them. Patty.
Okay, Patty, you want to go ahead and take the lead?
Okay.
And I'm here.
Okay, it says Jeff, a broker in your office, is working on securing a renter for a 6-unit apartment building. He normally doesn't do this type of work, but is doing it for a good friend. Within 2 days of advertising the apartment, Jeff receives a lease application from Randy Regent. Jeff notices that the application was recently released from federal prison for drug distribution and throws the application in the special file, the trash. Jeff absolutely doesn't want a felon to be in his friend's apartment complex. 2 days later, Randy speaks with Jeff and asks if his application has been received. Jeff lies and says no. Randy resends the application via Federal Express. Upon receipt of the application, Jeff tosses it away once again. Jeff rents the unit a day later to a Caucasian couple. As they are moving in, Randy approaches the couple and asks when they had submitted their application to Jeff. They state they had submitted it to Jeff the day before and it was accepted the same day. Randy Regent contacts you to complain of discrimination due to the fact that he is a Black man. What are the issues relating to fair housing that exist? What actions do you implement? And what are your thoughts about the fact that unintentional discrimination may be happening due to background checks?
And remember that earlier today, we talked about disparate impact. This is one of those areas where you're going to want to think about that. And because the fact that he's Black, now he's protected there, right? Race, color, creed, sex, national origin, familial handicap. but the fact that he has a criminal record, now we're getting over into some newer statute. So Jeremy, you want to give the update on that? On landlords refusing to rent to somebody because of a criminal record.
Yeah, so again, this is an area where the exact contours of it are still being figured out. But what HUD has said and the courts have said is that, and I'm talking about the federal law here, that blanket policies discriminating against individuals with criminal histories can lead to disparate impact. And so it's really not good to have a blanket policy on that or to prejudge based simply on the criminal history. Again, it's not at all clear within that scope exactly where things will land in terms of particular crimes, particularly violent crimes, other things like that. That is not, it's obviously not a directly protected class. Criminal history is not directly protected, but it is acknowledged that in some cases it can lead to disparate impact. And that's at the federal level. And that will play out in the courts in terms of exactly what the contours are. But I think in general, certainly a general way of thinking about it is certainly to the degree that you have blanket policies on this, you're certainly at risk. And you're also at risk by making individualized decisions. So this is just a really tricky area, unfortunately. In the state law and local jurisdictions are even now weighing in here, you're starting to see more particular statutes and ordinances around what is and what is not appropriate to screen for. And so, for example, in state law now, you cannot screen based on a past marijuana conviction. And then the city of Portland has stricter regulations around this issue, around criminal checks, and we expect that other jurisdictions will do that as well. So you really have to look at federal, state, and local, and unfortunately at the federal level, it's really unclear, other than we know that there is a risk of disparate impact by applying a policy which would tend to have an effect on certain protected classes because they have been more likely to be incarcerated for those crimes in the past.
So in order as a company owner, as a broker manager, to minimize my risk, how do I instruct my agents in the event this happens? And that's the question that I want you guys to kind of circle back to.
Well, I think that the broker was operating outside his field of expertise, number one, and you need to have that in your policy, that without written broker approval or something, they cannot be doing that. The other thing is, you can't lie to applicants. You have to be transparent and fair in your dealings with all people that are applying. And you don't throw it in the trash, lie about it, and then throw it in the trash again, because it's your friend. That's just like really creepy behavior that you don't want in your brokerage, I think.
Good.
I have a question though. We have all of this on his drug distribution and his felony and everything. And where would he have any room, even if the guy had thrown in the trash, to imply that he was discriminated against racially rather than, or color, rather than any of the other things that happened? It seems like it's two different instances, and if that were to go to the court couldn't even rule on it, because as we talked in our group, if he had been Googled and the broker knew he was Black, then there's proving that, and then there's the whole thing. It's not coherent. Why is, what is your liability in the fact that he's stressing something that isn't even anywhere a problem? you know, the problem was his felony record.
But it goes back to the impact, I think, too. So.
Well, and likely what would happen here is, honestly, if I were the claimant or his attorney, I would file both claims. I would file that I was discriminated based on race, and then also as a direct discrimination, and then also a disparate impact based on the drug violation. And the agency and the court would look at both of those. And as if you recall from earlier, the way these things are determined is if you ultimately end up renting it, if it stays on the market and you end up renting it to someone who didn't have the characteristic that was discriminated against, then you're at risk of being, of being in violation and convicted of that offense. And so, if you were to say keep it on the market and then rent it to a white person, you're going to be in a pretty difficult place to defend. And you're going to say, well, it wasn't because he was black, it was because of the drug conviction. But it's going to be a tough spot to be in. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. It's just that it just seems like, so many times people make accusations and they have nothing to do with what the problem is. So wondering how it fell there. Thank you.
So as a principal broker, manager, company owner, what would you see here as something you should be doing the minute you get back to your office or get back to work? Where are you going to take action now because remember, it's not you that's doing the behavior. We're talking about vicarious liability here. It's not you doing the behavior. What are you going to do? What are you going to implement now that you've got to protect the company for this not happening in your business? So again, it goes back to policies.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Deborah, one thing I think I noticed at the front end of this narrative, so Jeff is doing this. He normally doesn't do this type of work, but is doing it for a good friend. So from a risk management position, as far as the principal broker is concerned, that principal broker needs to be involved in the decision the good friend made to have Jeff stand in for him in an area that Jeff really doesn't have the expertise to be doing.
Well, you've got 3 areas here where you could have a possible violation. You've got the Oregon law that says you will not work outside your area of expertise. You've got landlord-tenant law. And then you've also, you've got the working outside your area of expertise that hopefully you will go back and make sure that you have in your company policy.
Right.
Remember, we're saying refer back to your policy. First and foremost, make sure your policy mirrors the law. And then you've got the law to back you up. Defensible position. That's the word I want you to tattoo across your brain. Holly knows I use this all the time. Your defensible position. And I'm going to add one more thing here. Is document, because should you be the result of a complaint for the actions of one of your agents, just make sure that they are trained to document. That then will also fall in, from a risk management standpoint, that will also fall under your defensible position. You're going to get tired of hearing me say those words, but I want it tattooed in your brain. Or as Carol says, a walking lawsuit. All right, next is number 4.
Okay, group number 4, feel free to speak out at any time, but I'll just kind of go ahead and start this. We had case study number 4. What would you do? You would be, what would you do? You would be more comfortable. Wes, an Asian man, meets with Linda, one of your brokers, to discuss purchasing a house for his family. When Wes names the neighborhood that he's interested in, the broker asks Wes if he's sure his family will feel comfortable there. Linda tells Wes she has a wonderful listing in another neighborhood where there are more people like him. When Linda takes Wes and his family to see the house, Wes notices that the residents of the neighborhood appear to be mostly Asian. Wes files a complaint with HUD because steering someone to a certain neighborhood because of his race is a form of discrimination. How would you monitor your brokers that are conducting home searches? And again, it all comes back to education. First of all, there's a couple errors made in the very beginning. Is one, the broker should have never asked Wes, or made the comment, people like him, there's more people like you. That's a help me out, people. Anyway, it sounds like, I can't get it out. It's awful. Anyway, it sounds like he was being prejudiced against. And if Wes was sure his family would even feel comfortable there. So those were two kind of red flags that jumped out. Again, it comes down to, we discussed policy, education, tracking the houses, just reminding the brokers that, you know, it is our policy in fair housing to show people any house that they want in any part of the town that's in our area of expertise. What actions would you implement to ensure compliance? Again, continuing education. Someone in our group brought up a great idea of throwing out case studies like these for fodder amongst our business meetings. Follow up with questionnaires from the people, from the clients that brokers showed homes to, you know, to get feedback. Did they feel like they were treated fairly, etc. That's it. That's all I have to say. Help me out, people.
Good job. Does it matter if we're comfortable or not?
No.
I mean, I think that's the one thing that this particular case study, you know, I was like, you know, one of the things we have to trade, it's their comfort isn't an issue here. You know, they have to do what's right according to the law. So good analysis there. So you see where it comes back to policy, training, consistency. So policy, training, consistency in this area, which then gives you your what? Defensible position. So you're getting this, why we're doing these exercises from a fair housing standpoint, not to teach you fair housing. I'm assuming you already know and understand fair housing laws. So that's why we're not teaching you fair housing laws. We're saying, okay, according to the fair housing laws, you have agents that have demonstrated this behavior. What are you going to do as a principal broker manager and a company owner to minimize your risk? So if we look at all of these case studies, do you see where it kind of narrows it down again? What are you going to do? Policy, training, consistency. Policy, training, consistency. And I like the idea of role playing and the idea of case studies in your meetings or your trainings. And we're going to talk about that too, how having weekly meetings with training is part of your defensible position. Right, Holly? So, all right, guys, good job. Let's take a 5-minute quick break here, okay? You don't have to shut down or move or go dark or anything like that unless you want to, but let's take 5 minutes. What time is it? And then we're going to come back. It's 11 o'clock. Just take a quick 5, and because we're about 20 minutes behind schedule. So with your all's permission, I'll talk fast when we get back. So let's take a quick 5 and come on back.
Put down there. Say hi, everybody.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, I'm Hudson.
Hi, Hudson. How are
See what
you?
Grandma's doing at work.
Ah.
Aw. Hi, Hudson. I'm
Grandma.
Say hi.
All right, Grandpa, take him back.
Yep.
Hi.
Are you a grandma, Lisa?
I am a grandma.
Me too. I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world.
It's the best thing in the world. And my kids are 27 and 23, and I told them that I love my grandson more than I love them.
I tell mine that too. We have 6, and our oldest just got a real estate license and came to work with me. I'm so excited. She'll be 29 in July this month.
Oh.
And then the baby is 13. But
oh my goodness.
3 beautiful granddaughters. I love it. I need a grandson.
Oh, it's so much fun. And then my nephew had a surprise baby. That
okay.
They were told they were pregnant on a Monday and they gave birth on a Wednesday.
What?
On Thanksgiving.
Oh my goodness.
She was rolling egg rolls with me on Thanksgiving morning, and we had our turkey, and then she went to the hospital, and I said, well, when are you coming home? She says, I'm not. They're putting me in labor right now.
Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine.
I only saw it on TV. I've never seen it before.
Oh, he's adorable. I'm going to mute because I'm going to answer a phone call while we're on break. Hold on.
There you go. Thanks.
So for you, the high C's in the room here, if you're familiar with the DISC profile, we're not going to be covering in depth everything in your book that you have, because that's a resource manual. Okay, don't think that we're going to be calling page by page by page.
Oh,
okay,
good.
a lot of that, yeah, a lot of that. Yeah, I can see somebody looking at their book going, "There's no way." Well, that's because we're there's a lot of that information. Ooh, I love Dahi's kitchen. That squirrel. That a lot of the information that is in the binder, we're not doing deep dives in. They're there for background. Okay. We'll wait for people to get back. So how y'all feeling so far?
Great.
See how this is different than sitting in a typical CE class when you've got your agents in there with you? One of the, there's a link there that Jeremy just put in the chat there.
Oh.
But one of the things that differentiates the Principal Broker Academy are the conversations that we can have without the agents in the room, which is was something that was really missing in our education that we were providing as an industry, was that next level up of this type of education. So I hope you guys are finding it beneficial.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know I posted 2 links in the chat box. One is a memo from the Housing and Urban Development Department describing how they view criminal history and rental decisions, and another is a recent case settlement on this issue that I think both of them give you a sense of how this is playing out, both inside the agency and then in the courts. So those would be good things to look at on that issue, which is admittedly a very difficult issue, which I do not have particular expertise in.
Okay, guys, let's get going. So advertising. As a managing principal broker, this is the nemesis to all of us, is advertising. According to the Oregon Real Estate Agency, is one of your primary responsibilities is supervision of advertising and making sure that that all of your agents are complying. Some of the most frequent complaints, and by the way, I serve on the Oregon Real Estate Agency board, so I see what comes through and, you know, and see the cases. And most of the advertising complaints on advertising are from agents against agents, brokers, principal brokers against principal brokers. The consumer doesn't care. Really, the consumer says, you know, as long as I know that this house is for sale, I don't care that the team name is bigger than the company name. But other agents filing complaints against other agents is the #1 source of complaints for advertising with the real estate agency. So one of your duties as a principal broker is to review and approve all, and I'm going to say the capital I, capital A, capital L, capital L, all marketing and advertising that your agents do. So anything that comes out of your agents or you that goes to the public is considered advertising or marketing. So in today's digital world, do you know how impossible they have put that on us as managing brokers? Do you know how impossible it is? So, you know, I'm looking at a group of people here, and each one of us have baby realtors running around out there. I know that, you know, some of you said 40 or 50. I have 550 of them that sometimes, you know, from a risk management, we don't have a clue what they're doing. Because if we can't manage them, we can't approve it unless what? They give it to us, right? They send it to us for approval.
It's really hard to understand you again. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
again? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm probably moving to. I'm sorry. Thank you for, you guys have to let me know, because I'm actually not in my office. I'm at the farm, and I'm on my laptops instead of my normal configuration, so I really apologize. At least you haven't heard the cows moo yet. So how am I doing now? Is that better? Not better? Is that better? Okay, sorry. So as a managing principal broker, like I said, one of your biggest responsibilities is to verify, check, and approve advertising. Now, one of the good things is that it's their responsibility, meaning your agents, your brokers, it's their responsibility to keep records of that. So if they get in trouble and they can't produce a proof of your review and approval, they're the ones that are going to get on the hot seat, okay? As long as you have a what in place? Policy, yeah. So Jesse, I'm a lip reader now. As long as you have a policy in place, okay, and that you consistently, so policy, consistency, education, a defensible position. So as long as you can show in your policy that it is your company policy that they provide you with all of their marketing and advertising before it goes out, then you from a risk management standpoint, you have provided your defensible position by saying, you know, they went rogue, here's my policy, here's what they're required to do, okay. Here's my education where At these sales meetings and at this time, I've provided education. Now,
There are
whether or
a
not
number of people that cannot hear.
I'm sorry.
I mean, other
Can you hear
people
me
are
now?
kind of chatting in and saying they can't hear. I can't hear. I mean,
Can you hear me now?
yeah, but it
Was-
only stays that way until we mute out. When we mute out, it seems like.
Okay, then I'm not sure why, because I didn't change anything.
If you hold still, it seems
Oh,
to
God,
work
that's
better.
like asking a dog not to bark.
I know.
Uh,
I'm glad that you're talking about this because just this week we actually posted our policy all around the office again, emailed it to everyone. It's a continuous thing that we're battling. And then of course we have a separate social media policy, which is a whole other issue right now, especially in these times. And we've found we have to be really careful because we've had agents come to us and say, that's our Second Amendment right. It's really, yeah, we're having fun with that one.
A lot of companies are, and a lot of companies are revising their social media based on that. I know our company at a national level, we've actually let agents go. We've actually dismissed them from the company based on inappropriate social media.
We did as well this week. We just, yeah. We're violating that policy. Exactly. And we were able to say, here it is. You keep violating. Nope, you're gone. Yeah.
Exactly. And so
Who checks up on it though? How do you guys keep up with all of it? There's so much. I mean, there's so many different venues for people to be posting stuff, and I honestly don't know how people do it. But
honestly, for me, I can tell you, we get notified by other brokers. If I don't see it first, another broker's calling me from our office or another office saying, "Hey, Heather, here's a screenshot. Not sure if you saw this."
And Heather is exactly correct, because that's how I find out. I also stalk my agents on Facebook. You know, I'm and you should do that every once in a while. Just kind of go on and just kind of see what they're doing. Everybody has their rights. We don't want to infringe upon their freedom of speech. But if they are a member of your corporate structure and you have policies in place that are non-discriminatory, that are non-discriminatory, you have the right to terminate somebody for that. But getting back to advertising and your responsibilities in the digital marketing world, first and foremost, you've got your advertising, your multiple listing rules. And, you know, this new rule that came out, the fair cooperation, making sure that your agents are in compliance with that. And no preference or limitation on protected class. How many of you review, those of you that are managing several agents, how many of you review the remarks, the marketing remarks in your MLS before they go on to MLS?
I do.
I do, because I manage new licensees, so everything they do, I have to see her. Oh my God. So it all goes through me first.
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly. And I find too that when I'm reviewing MLS remarks, there's oftentimes misuse of words. And that's another area when we look at fair housing, is making sure that your agents are, number one, that you have a policy, number two, that you're educating them, and number three, that you're consistent on making sure that they're not using words that would be indicative of discrimination or violations of fair housing. One that's gotten a lot of attention lately, and those of you in the Portland area will understand what I'm talking about, is walking distance. That there has been, you know, in Portland, there's a walking score that you get, but yet a fair housing violation could be that you say walking distance to something. So you've got a little bit of a conflict there. So because it would, and then recently, I guess last week, did you all hear about where they're removing the word master from master bedroom out of MLS? all the MLSs. So that master bedroom is considered discriminatory or could be offensive.
So what would it be instead of master? Just like
Primary.
main?
Primary or main suite or something like that.
Yeah. So when I say no preferences or limitations, I'm talking also about in your MLS remarks. That's an area where you as a managing broker have some vicarious liability. I'm going to keep going back to that word. So it's important that you're monitoring all of your individual broker websites and approving them. A lot of companies, we have a whole department that does that, making sure that, which is why it's a good idea, again, policy, education, but also a lot of companies, in order to minimize their exposure when it comes to individual agent websites, are providing a source for individual websites that are already approved by the company in order to avoid that. Okay, advertising, you want to make sure that you always have the fair housing logo and the fair housing poster. Okay, in advertising, where do you feel, we're going to do a blitz here, and I'm not going to break you into groups again because I want to get through and catch up on our time. Are y'all cool with that? Because I think we're a small enough group that we could be one group instead of breaking out. Are y'all cool with that? Good. Okay, so where do you feel your biggest challenges are in minimizing vicarious liability regarding fair housing? Just give me a couple.
Criminal background. The
I'm
criminal
sorry?
background.
The criminal background. Okay. And I think I'll give you one here that I lose sleep over. And that is that you're not always, your agents are always in front of you. You don't know what they're doing or what they're saying when they're not in front of you. Right? I mean, do you?
That's a big one for me.
That's absolutely the biggest one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the one I lose sleep over is, what call am I going to get? What are they doing? Because it's impossible to know what everybody's doing 100% of the time. You just can't. It's impossible. It's an impossible standard on us as principal brokers. Go ahead.
Facebook is my biggest worry, and because people are sending out messages on there, Facebook's that can potentially lead back to you with this advertise. They can be when they're not even thinking they're advertising, and they are. So
yeah, and I'm going to
wait.
There's Facebook.
Just wait. There's Instagram too. You got to do that.
Oh, they're all of them. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I only have 5 agents in my company, and we have a pack that whenever they do marketing on social media, they shoot a text out to me, and I review a quick one and then shoot it right back. So we always do making sure that even social medias, everyone's compliance in that way.
And I'll approve templates because it's physically impossible to pre-approve everything. And what about Facebook Live? What if you're doing a live virtual open house and you're walking through? How am I going to approve that before you post it? So Oregon law right now, if you have agents who are posting virtual tours live on Facebook, you're in violation of Oregon law. Think about it. Why are you in violation of Oregon law if your agents are posting virtual tours live on Facebook?
Because there's no way for you to preview or to review it ahead of time and approve it.
Yeah, there's no way for you to approve it before it goes live. So you're legally in violation of Oregon law. You want to hear the good news? The real estate commissioner, Steve Strode, who used to be an agent, he's put together a work group because remember our advertising rules in the Oregon real estate rules were pre-internet. It was when I, as a managing broker, or our advertising pre-approval was the slick that came from the newspaper that you got on Thursday that was going to go in the newspaper on Sunday. So the laws that we have now that we're being held accountable to are archaic at best. So fortunately, the real estate agency is putting together a work group to look at bringing our advertising rules into this century. So, but really every single one of us, when your agent does a virtual tour without your pre-approval, you're in violation of Oregon law.
So Deborah, do you recommend that agents don't do virtual tours and that kind of thing precisely for that reason?
No, because that puts them at a competitive disadvantage. I'm not going to tell an agent not to do a live virtual tour, but I'm going to document, as you well know, I'm going to document that we've trained it, and our policy is that if you're doing them, you don't do this, you don't do that, that we have structured into our policy that if you're going to do virtual open houses, you're going to follow the rules, you're not going to discriminate, you know, you're going to wear your clothes, that kind of thing. But again, it goes back to policy that if somebody does complain about an agent's behavior on a virtual tour, we go to our policy and you say, here's my policy on that. Here's where I've given the education on that. Here's where I've provided them what to do and what not to do. And here's my consistency.
Question about virtual tours and marketing. Is an agent able to wear company pride wear, let's call it, you know, with the logo on it and that kind of thing when doing a virtual tour, or is that considered company marketing? Do you know what I'm saying? As opposed
that wouldn't be a law. That could depend on individual MLS rules, but the
Okay.
law doesn't prohibit it.
Okay.
But you want to double check with your MLS rules because some MLSs don't allow signs to be in the pictures,
Yeah.
kinds of things, or and because of IDX feeds, they go out to everybody, you know, those types of things. So those would be individual MLS rules. So verify there. But from Oregon law standpoint, there's no prohibition against it. But there's also what's good taste. You know, what is good etiquette? What is good protocol? You know, like you wouldn't wear your badge to a funeral. That, you know, just be, I'm not being snippy here, but you know, there's a line for sure. So. Okay, so we're still on fair housing a little bit, but we've also now gone into advertising a little. Do you train your agents to do an initial interview? Now, there are testers out there. You guys have heard of fair housing HUD testers? Remember, it was one of the questions on the quiz?
Yes.
And they are out there now. Now, I don't know with COVID, they've backed off, but there is a likelihood that sometime in your career you will be tested. And they will come in different people at different times. So if they target your company and they come in your front door, the likelihood is that they're going to see, are they treated consistently and non-discriminatory, every single one of them, which gets us to the best practice, the client interview process. That initial consultation. Now, you know, I preach and preach and preach on this, that before a buyer gets in your car, you should be doing and training your agents for that initial client interview, and that it be consistent, that every question that you ask, you ask everybody. I'm just going to bring it down to a very simple protocol. And that is, if somebody walks in your office and you offer them a cookie, you damn well better offer everybody that comes in your office a cookie. That's what I mean by consistency. So if everybody who comes in your office and meets with an agent, that agent better be doing a client interview with every single person and consistently asking the same questions. Because here's what's happened in the past. You have a Black couple who walks into an office. They're treated differently than a white couple who comes into the office. there's a video. I'll find the link, Jeremy, and we can send it out. The Long Island, the case that was just in the media. Are you familiar with it? In New York? How many of you
I'm
have
very
seen
familiar with the case, yeah.
Yeah, there's a video. There was like an expose video, and it showed exactly that, where clients walked into a real estate office, Black couple, white couple, treated very differently. There was inconsistency. So it's very important to make sure that you're doing your best practices as a client interview.
Deborah, I have a comment about that. So you know me, I'm a really super touchy-feely person. I love to, touch a person's shoulder, and, that kind of thing. It's like when I meet somebody, it's like they're my friend instantaneously. And I've learned the hard way that, and so that's the way I'm with everybody. But I've learned the hard way from a cultural perspective that some people are really put off by that. I'm too familiar with people, right? And so I've had to tone back the way I operate with people, even though it may go against my grain of who I am as a person, only because I don't want to overstep that boundary of being too familiar or too personal with people, you know what I mean? So if I might, reach over and touch somebody's arm to say, oh my gosh, you're right, well, whatever. And somebody from, whether it's the same culture that I'm with as or not, I don't know if I'm making any sense. I feel like I'm talking in circles, but the point is that there's, in different cultures, people may interpret my behavior in a way that could be considered off-putting or even, well, not discriminatory, I don't think, but anyway, I guess I'm just saying that we need to.
That gets back to, okay, good. Holly, I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's an excellent class that NAR does, and it's called At Home with Diversity. And if you haven't taken it, I would really highly recommend that you take that. It's called At Home with Diversity. And it talks about those cultural adaptations and how to have that. And I am a CIPS, which is a Certified International Property Specialist. And during those courses, they also teach you how to be culturally sensitive without being discriminatory or without being kiss ass, excuse my French, that you're being in a really good way honoring and respecting the cultural difference as opposed to and I think that's what you're talking about, Holly, whereas
exactly,
with the different cultural backgrounds, and respecting that is not discriminatory. So,
and you said At Home with Diversity is put on by who again?
The National Association of Realtors. It's called At Home with Diversity. It's available pretty consistently, both online and through different associations, but it's a great class. And it talks about that, the cultural differences without being discriminatory or steering. So, and are your clients, are your agents talking to their clients about fair housing in their initial client interviews? Are you training your agents to do initial client interviews? I know I talk about it every week in our meetings. It's like, every time something comes up that's in a transaction, I go back to, did you cover it in your initial interview, your initial consultation, those types of things. So again, back to policy. Now that we're going to talk about agency relationships in your initial interview. And we're going to do a deeper dive on that next week. Confidentiality. I'm going through these real quick, guys, because you know this stuff. Review how antitrust guidelines limit discussions on commissions. Do you have commission discussions with your clients? I'm going through fast. Gather information, review, this is all there. Okay, let's get to this. What do you say? An Asian couple, one an accountant, the other a teacher, have made an offer on your listing. Your seller asks your agent, okay, now remember, the seller asks your agent, not you, vicarious liability. Your seller asks, what color are they? How do you respond?
I would just go back to the agent, and it has to do with, again, their initial communication that they had with the seller when they set up the listing to explain about fair housing and that the house will be shown to everyone, and just remind them that we fall under the fair housing laws. If he has a problem with that, then he's breaking the fair housing laws and I can't list his home.
Okay, excellent. Policy, education, consistency. You guys are going to get tired of hearing me say that. But let me give you a one-sentence answer that you can train your agents to say. Okay, if they get asked this question, how are you going to train your agents to respond? I'm sorry, Mr. Seller, I am legally and ethically unable to answer that question. Period, done, boom. I am sorry, I'm legally and ethically unable to answer that question. Period. And if they persist, and you've trained your agents, if they persist, at what point in time then should your agent bring you in? This is one of those moments in time where you want to make sure that your agents know where that line is, if that's, because you may want to let that seller go. You know, if they're insisting, what they're doing is they're opening a door to you for liability. So again, it goes back to training, policy, consistency. So I'm sorry, but I'm legally and ethically unable to answer that question. Boom.
And if they persist, I think we need to end the listing agreement.
Absolutely, Randy, and I'll send them to you.
Thanks, Deb.
You're welcome. Anytime. My pleasure. Okay, Mr. Adams, a prospective buyer, is of Indian descent. The house has been shown 4 times in 2 months and no one else seems interested. Your seller asks, I don't want these people to get the house. If I take my home off the market, how long do I have to wait before I can sell it again? Carol wrote this. I'm sorry, Mr. Seller, but I'm legally and ethically unable to answer that question. Boom, done, move on. You getting the gist here? Your broker serves an area with homes owned by a wide variety of races, ages, and religions. The Caucasian broker's own children attend a school that is approximately 40 Caucasian, 10, blah, blah, blah. The buyer client asks, where do your kids go to school? If you like it. Surely that is where I should send my kids. What say you?
I'm sorry, so-and-so. I'm legally and ethically unable to answer that question.
I don't see any problem with it.
And that's it. You can certainly say, you know, my children go to XYZ school. However, if the school is important, I recommend that you do your own research and not go based on what my children results are. Here's why. Big lawsuit, you guys. Agent told buyer, these are the best schools in the county. You got to buy here because these are the best schools in the county. My kids go there. Buyer buys a house in that, puts their kids in that school, and the kids flunk out of school. Guess who got sued? Because did the buyer rely on the information? The wife. Who got sued? The agent.
I see the words highly desirable school district in listing remarks all the time.
And I always, and when I see those, I ask my agents to take them out. Because desirable to what? What does that mean? That's one of those words. And in your resource materials, there's a couple of handouts that I provided for you that gives cautionary words. And I hand these out to my agents all the time. I have a compliance workplace group, and I put those things in there. And it's a list of words that are caution that you can use and that you can't use in advertising. And that's in your materials somewhere.
So you can't say highly rated school district?
Huh?
You can't say highly rated school district?
Well, if you've got statistics to prove that, but
Yeah.
I would never be very, very careful of making judgment calls on schools, crime, racial composition, you know, and I'll take it one step further is when a client asks you, what's the crime rate? Is it, you know, is this a safe neighborhood? Well, Mr. and Mrs. Byer, if that's a concern of yours, I would suggest that you reach out to the police department or the local resources for that information. Because what if I tell you, oh, there's no crime in this community, you move in and the next day after you've moved in, your house gets robbed. Do you see where that and training your agents on how to answer those questions is important?
You got to encourage your clients to do their own due diligence.
Yes.
And so exactly what Deborah's saying, when it comes to schools, different areas, any of that stuff, encourage them. I mean, the internet, you can find out anything on the internet. Doesn't mean it's true, but whatever. You just empower them to go out and get that information for themselves. Because if you say anything or have an opinion about anything, that's where all those lawsuits come from. That's why we're talking about all this stuff.
Yeah, you can refer them to crime mapping where they put in the address and it shows them all of the crime around it over the last year or 3 months.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you another phrase to use with your brokers and your agents is be the source of the information. Okay. Be the source of the information. So if they ask me, how's the schools, here's where you can find that out.
That's right.
See how I'm training them to be the source of the source? Not the source, be the source of the source. Okay, moving along quickly here. The buyer clients, Mr. and Mrs. Ruiz, identify as Hispanic. They are financially qualified and have made an offer within $15,000 of the asking price. Your broker has shown the house, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to do that, blah, blah, blah. I apologize. Can I wait for Mr. and Mrs. O'Brien to make an offer? The Ruiz family just doesn't seem to be the type I want to buy my home. Red flags all over this, right? How do you train your agents to respond to this? Policy, consistency, training.
Yeah,
and again, how do you respond to your seller?
Are you aware of fair housing laws? Would you like me to get you information on that?
Now, is this the time to have that conversation, or are you training your agents to have that conversation when they take the listing? You know, that's when you train them. That's when you have that conversation with the seller and train your agents to have it then. Let me go through these. You guys have these. I'm going to skip through them pretty quick because they get a little repetitive here on stuff we've already covered. I do want to address, though, from a fair housing standpoint, multiple offers and love letters. How are you training your agents to deal with those? There's been a few recent cases of discrimination based on the love letters. And what do I mean by a love letter? Where you have a multiple offer situation and the buyer and the buyer's agent. Now, they're perfectly legal. I don't recommend them. I'm going to go on record saying I do not recommend love letters when presenting offers. As a matter of fact, I train my agents, if you're doing a multiple offer situation, you go in with a spreadsheet with no name and nothing identify them that falls under any of the protected classes. You use just a generic spreadsheet. And I'm happy to share that with you between now and next week. It's very, very, very simple, basic spreadsheet. But allowing your agents to use love letters is number one, what is it? Policy. Number two, what is it? Educating them on how to use it if they are, and how to instruct their clients if they're going to write one. Never let your agents write the love letter for their client. Just like you never let your agent fill in the seller's disclosure questionnaire. So why is the love letter a danger zone? Especially if they include a picture.
I think it's a danger zone because so many times the love letters violate the fair housing. For example, I go to your church, we're the same religion, you need to pick me. Sometimes they'll be, you know, hey, we're the same ethnicity, or, I mean, it's just basically to pull on the heartstrings. We're a normal American family, we're a family, those type of things.
Right.
Make them dangerous.
You're putting them in the position of unintentional discrimination. Remember, we talked about that earlier on, where you can, one of the quiz questions was, can discrimination be unintentional? Yes, it can. And is a love letter putting your seller and your agent, putting your seller client into a potential risk situation? Are y'all agreeing with me here, or
Deborah,
yeah.
how do you feel about telling, if you have a listing, telling buyer's agent that if the seller agrees, that they won't accept a love letter? I mean, just to protect that particular buyer or all buyers. Is that over the top?
It's the way you want to train your agents. It's the seller's decision, of course, the seller's decision, always. But I would counsel the seller at the time of the listing that this is you do realize that this is a market-driven strategy, that love letters are, and that's how you should be training your agents. Write these words down: market-driven strategy. Okay. It's the market and the competitiveness of the market, the lack of inventory, that's driving this practice. Okay. And that's why we're seeing such an uptick in those things, because the buyer's agents are wanting to give their client every advantage that they can. And love letters have become, there's trainers and coaches out there who are encouraging their coachees, I guess that's the word, to utilize this strategy. And can your seller say, yes, I want to see them? Of course they can. But you also need to counsel your agents to counsel their sellers that this opens the door to potential unintended discrimination. Make sense?
I would be very interested in any information you have on that stuff, your spreadsheet that you're talking about, Deborah, because I completely agree. I don't like them at all, but I have had many run-ins with people who want to send them, and it's created major issues.
Yeah, and you can tell them, you know, my seller has instructed me that he will not, or that they will not review these until after a decision is made. And your seller can definitely communicate that. Absolutely. So.
I just want to throw in there too, I don't know if it's in the curriculum somewhere else, but similarly, if there's any video or audio recording going on at the home, that can create significant fair housing risks as well. We just put out a video on this from OAR.
Yes.
Well, it's not directly illegal to record in Oregon, it does expose you to fair housing risks. And so, it's something to be aware of.
Meaning that if your seller is nanny camming the buyers who come through, and a buyer writes an offer and they happen to be in one of the protected classes, and the seller declines that offer, there could be an open door for some potential discrimination. So,
yep.
Excellent reminder, Jeremy, on that one.
I think that's a great idea to help to not have those cameras in there, because oftentimes I see agents are saying, my sellers still want to have these secret cameras around, and it's like, how do you address that? So that makes a good statement to say, you know, it does kind of constitute of fair housing.
I have a question. Isn't it true that if there are cameras on the facility, seller does have cameras, that the potential buyers need to be aware of that before entering the home? And shouldn't that also be on the WVMLS as well in private remark? So just a thought.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, we put together like a 5-minute video on our legal brief series that you can find on our website on this, and it walks through all of that. In Oregon, it's not required to disclose that, but we recommend in the video, you see, we recommend that it is disclosed. And we recommend against even really watching it or using it because of fair housing violations. But it's not required by state law to disclose it. The MLS may have its own rules depending where you're at. And certainly there's also some ethical questions for realtors around your ethical responsibilities and your agency responsibilities. And we walk through those in the video as well.
So Jeremy, is that video that you guys sent out here about, I don't know, 3 days ago or so?
Yeah, it was in I did the video and it was in the Principal Broker newsletter that went out 4 or 5 days ago, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, great follow-up. So how are you guys feeling now on your risk management when it comes to fair housing and seeing how the fair housing laws go through more than just fair housing in your daily operations of your business? That fair housing appears numerous times throughout your practice of your business and in your risk management of your company. That's usually a light bulb for a lot of people at this point in the class was, wow, I had no idea how much fair housing actually impacts so many facets of our business, and how as managing brokers we need to keep that in mind. All right, you guys are familiar, we're moving on. Oregon Real Estate Agency, you're familiar with the OREA. One of the things that you're going to find with your agents is they don't oftentimes distinguish between OAR and OREA. So Oregon Association of Realtors is not a rule-making body. We are an association. And the Oregon Real Estate Agency is, in fact, a rule-making, a rule-enforcing body, the Oregon Real Estate Agency. So Jeremy, how many times a day do you guys get calls there for the Oregon Real Estate Agency?
Oh, probably a dozen. No, I'm exaggerating, but multiple per day for sure.
Yeah. And so it's important for you as a managing broker to know the difference between the OAR and the OREA. So that the Oregon Real Estate Agency primarily is responsible for licensing and regulation of principal brokers and your duties. Now, in the real estate rules, there's several pages in the rules that tells you what your duties are as a managing broker and as a principal broker. And we're gonna, I'm just gonna have you read those. Okay, we do the exams, the education, course oversight. In other words, every CE provider has to be approved by the real estate agency. They monitor the real estate activities. I'm making up on some time. Y'all cool with that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, conduct investigations and hearings when complaints are filed. Now remember, the Oregon Real Estate Agency, their job is to protect the consumer. Okay, that's their number one job, is to protect the consumer, not to protect the agent or you. Okay, they're basically the enforcer. And so there's the process of filing a complaint, and then they investigate, and then there's hearings, and then there's a decision made. And they're a little bit behind right now, but I have a direct link always on, you should have this on your laptop or your computer to be able to log in at any moment in time on the rules. And there's a direct link there for you. Okay, those are all there. Okay, what are your principal broker responsibilities? Okay, outline the supervision expectations of a principal broker. What do you think the number one job of a principal broker is, you guys, that now that you are one or you want to be one or you've been one for a while, what is your number one job?
Babysitting adults.
I call it herding cats. There's normally when I'm doing this live, there's a video and you should watch it. It's called the Cat Herder, and it's these cowboys on horseback and they're herding cats. You guys you gotta Google it and watch it. It is absolutely hysterical. That's us. is that the cowboy's on the horse herding cats. Okay, our number one job as a licensee principal broker in the state of Oregon is supervision of our agents as they provide services to the public. It is our number one job to make sure that our agents are doing no
Got that
harm.
right, honey.
Huh? Oh, I heard somebody. Was that you, Heather?
Yeah, I told my husband I got that right.
Oh.
He's sitting on the couch telling me all the answers. Sorry.
That's good. That's good. So yeah, that's your responsibility. Number one. You also have the responsibility of reviewing all paperwork within 7 banking days. Now the law says, well, how soon does your agent have to have it turned in? 3 days. 3, yeah, Heather. But and that 7 days that you have includes that 3 days, you guys. It's not an additional 3 days or 7 days. It's a total of 7 days after it's been accepted, rejected, or withdrawn. And you do know you have to review and archive and save rejected offers. You do know that, right? Because I oftentimes, when I'm working with principal brokers, they go, but it's a rejected offer. Why do I have to keep it? Why do I have to save it? Well, because who signed it? A consumer. What does the law say? It says signed and or accepted. So if you have any documents that are signed by a client, your agents have a responsibility to turn them into you. And if you use SkySlope, how many of you use SkySlope? There's a whole section in SkySlope. Thank God for SkySlope. That you just have to have your agents uploaded into SkySlope, boom, review, initial into the archive for rejected offers. And if you're using SkySlope and you're the listing agent, you can put a tab for rejected offers and you can save them right there in the listing file. For those of you that are wondering huh?
Sorry, so what is the 3-day rule as opposed to 7?
The agent has 3 days to turn it in to you to be signed and approved. You have 7 days.
I thought I had 3. Okay.
No, well, usually the agents get it to you later than 3 days, which means sometimes you have less than 2 hours to do your job to stay within the 7 hours. So our company policy is 2 days that they have to turn it in within 48 hours. Just to get in. Holly, don't tell anybody else that. They think the law is 2. But we do have a company policy that it has to be turned in within 2 business days. Okay, 2 business days.
Ours is 2 days too. Like that just gives me a little bit more wiggle. So I just tell them.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, and document review electronically. There was a situation where somebody said, well, the principal broker has to initial the actual document. No, the real estate agency says that if you initial in SkySlope or in any other electronic .loop, any of those areas, that's considered electronically is okay. Because I used to have my agents send them to me to sign before they did anything. Now we can sign them through SkySlope. Got an opinion on that. Okay, now, if you have a company that has more than 1 principal broker, so 2 or more principal brokers, because remember in Oregon, there's only 2 license categories, right? Principal broker and broker. We're not talking about property management, that's a separate license. So how does the consumer know who's the grand poobah? If you've got, like with my company, I've got 37 other principal brokers under my principal broker's license. How does the consumer know which one of those is of us? How do they know which one's the managing principal broker? They don't. There's no way for the consumer to go on to the Oregon Real Estate Agency website and know and determine who's the managing principal broker. There's no way.
Can't hear you again.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to start kissing my computer here. So you have to have what's called a shared responsibility, and we gave you a sample of one in your booklet there. That if you have more than one principal broker, you all have to enter into agreement as to who's responsible for what. Okay, and there's a sample of that in your book. Y'all are doing that, right? If you have more than one principal broker, you already know this.
Are we on a specific page or something? I'm just having trouble following.
Oh, well, like I said, we're not following the book exactly.
Okay.
But
All right.
we're probably about page 19. 18, 19 in your handout. So the written supervisory agreement, I'm going to go through this because it's all in your book as to what has to be in there. And this isn't going to apply to most of you. Okay, if one of you leave or a new one comes on, you have to update that, which I'm going to admit I'm a little behind on that one. I need to make sure I do that. See, we're not all perfect. You can share equally supervisory control as long as you it's spelled out in your agreement. Okay, setting up your RBN. Don't confuse your RBN. What is your RBN? If you have your own company or you're a managing broker, what is the RBN? It's your registered business name with the real estate agency, you guys. Not your LLC with the Secretary of State. Don't confuse the two, because we've had some brokers, principal broker company owners recently have their company shut down because they didn't renew their RBN, but renewed their LLC. See the difference? You guys are getting tired.
For me, it's just really hard to hear. You know,
I know,
so-
we'll work on that for next week, Patty. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Deborah,
Yeah.
An RBN is not necessarily a team name, right?
No,
Okay.
it is not.
Okay.
A company can only have one registered business name, one. Okay. Now, a team can have an LLC, but only individuals can be licensed under the RBN. You cannot register a team name with a real estate agency. Only an individual name under one registered business name. And again, this falls under advertising, making sure that you're using your name that's on your license. And I know I got a complaint filed against me because one of my agents was not using their legal name. And of course, another agent filed the complaint, but I had to go and say, well, we had to defend ourselves. We won, but still, it was an agent not using their legal name.
So on the DBA and stuff like that, so if you have both, as a principal broker, you have both a DBA and your company name, you do not have to have an RBN? You're not charged to register those two business names by the agency?
With the agency, a company can only have one RBN, registered business name.
Okay.
Now, you can have other names registered with the Secretary of State, DBA, but you can only have one RBN with the Oregon Real Estate Agency.
Okay.
Can your team name be the same as your brokerage name?
No.
Mine is. So, oops. I wonder why.
Well, you mean you. But for example, I'm going to use Holly for example. she can't be Holly EXP as her team name. You can't use the company name and the team name. But if your company is your team, you're fine.
Yeah, so mine's Patty Millen Group, Inc., which is also the team name, so that's fine.
That's fine.
Oh,
Yes.
yay, thank you.
And then I'm going to talk about, and the RBN, Katie, are you still in the room? That amount changed, I think. I think it's more than $50 now.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we want to double check the amount that we have on that slide. I think it's different.
I just renewed mine. I think it was $100 in Oregon.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to skip through all this because you all know how to use e-license, right? Any questions on that? I'm not going to waste our time telling you how to use e-license. And here's your doing business as. Yes, you can do that. So you can advertise under your DBA, but you have to have a DBA filed. For example, let's say I'm seeing Sonia's up there, Western Home Realty. See, Sonia's up there on her name. It says Western Home Realty. Well, if her RBN with the real estate agency is Western Home Realty LLC, she has to use Western Home Realty LLC in all of her marketing and advertising. If she wants to use just Western Home Realty without the LLC, she has to do a DBA. Because the LLC is part of your name. I see, Patty, you're looking at me like, huh?
There's another caveat to that too, that your any brokers under your license have to be under either the DBA or your Western Inc. You know, you have to choose where you're going to put your licensees when you have a DBA. Is that correct?
Your licensees can only be under your RBN.
Okay.
Only be under an RBN.
So on my business, it's Patty Millen Group, Inc. is what's registered with the real estate agency.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually advertise as Patty Millen Group, so it doesn't matter, really.
Until somebody complains, and that's what happened to me, is
Because I don't have the
Realty,
Inc.
the name is EXP Realty LLC, and we were advertising EXP Realty. Somebody filed a complaint.
Jeez.
And it was another company, another realtor filed the complaint. I have a copy of it. I framed it.
Unbelievable.
And so I had to, and we had to go through this whole thing with all of our agents who were using EXP Realty instead of Inc. or LLC. So then we had to go and file a DBA in order for us to not have to correct hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of marketing materials that didn't have the LLC on it.
So do I file that with the Division of Corporations as a DBA?
Yes, with the Secretary of State. Yeah.
Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm. SOS.
It's very easy.
Yeah.
Very easy.
It's just go online and do it.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, we go online to Secretary of State and we just look up DBA and then the whole process of how to do that, because I have the same issue.
Okay, thank you. I
And
appreciate
honestly, I didn't know it was an issue until somebody filed a complaint against me.
Of course not.
You know, so you guys are learning from me being complained against. And again, it was another agent company who did that.
Nice.
How you doing, John? Mr. Coots, I see you there. I see you just shaking your head sometimes. You hanging in there with us, buddy?
No choice.
Oh, you have it. Oh, well, I hope you're learning. I hope this is beneficial.
Yeah, well, I have a 12 o'clock appointment, so I don't know how much longer we're going. That's what's hard.
Well, we're going to go not very much after 12 because I want to respect your time, and we'll finish this up next week. We'll jettison through. Document compliance. You must turn in the records for 3 days. I want to get through this. 7 days, we've already talked about that. How long do you have to keep your records? 6 years. Electronic filing and record storage is adequate, okay? You don't have to keep hard copies. So that there's actually, you can keep them in a file electronically. I'm going to go through these real fast because I want to get down to where, you know, this is just reinforcing all the things that are signed, copies of receipts. We know that, copies of everything. Carol is very thorough. Any documents, client trust accounts. How many of you actually have a client trust account? Why?
So I've had it, but I don't use it because I just use, I don't do any property management, so I just send everything to title companies.
Okay, I'm gonna encourage you to notify the Oregon Real Estate Agency, to close that out and notify the Oregon Real Estate Agency, because there's really no need to have a trust account today, unless you're property management, separate. We're not talking about property management.
Okay.
But for a brokerage today, to have a client trust account, 2 reasons: the auditing that you have to do and the reconciliation, and the title companies perform that function for you.
Gotcha.
My company doesn't have a trust account. My former company that was a boutique company, they don't have a trust account. Every single escrow check goes where? Directly to escrow. So now, some of the old time, I might have just committed a fair housing violation. Some of us more senior, long time in the business, there's this myth out there that the reason a company wants to maintain their own escrow trust account is because it's easier for them to return the money to their buyer clients without getting all the paperwork done. Well, let me tell you this. If that's why you have an escrow account and you're giving money back to a client without all the signed paperwork, you're in tremendous trouble of losing your license. Okay. So it is, if you have your own earnest money trust account, you are held to the same standard as an escrow or title company when they're holding those funds. I've had situations where a broker said, I don't have the termination agreement signed, but my buyer wants their money back. They give them their money back. It goes to litigation. Guess who had to refund that money to their seller? The broker. The broker was out of pocket for that money. Never release earnest money without full documentation or court order. Right, Jeremy? Or court order.
That is correct. That is correct. And I just double down on Deborah's comments. It's absolutely unnecessary and foolish to take on that risk when you do not need to.
Yes. Thank you. That's the attorney speaking. So if you do have one, what are you going to do as soon as we're done here?
I'm going to close it down. I haven't used it since I opened my company 11 years ago.
Yeah, shut it down, but make sure you notify the Oregon Real Estate Agency that you've done that, or you're double in violation.
I will.
Yeah, good job. So you left here with that one thing, huh, Lisa?
Yes, I've actually learned quite a bit.
Good, thank you. So it's 10 after. I want to respect your time. Read ahead as much as you can, guys, so we can jettison through next week. Anything that you want to send to me directly, or questions or comments, please, other than the sound, I got it. Please don't put that on the evaluation. I got it. And I apologize. I don't even know. Crackle, yeah, we can't hear. Okay, I apologize for that. Sound bad. We'll work on that.
Are there any other handouts for next week?
We'll make sure that everybody gets the links that Jeremy posted in the chat box to everybody. I'm going to send, I don't have your all's individual emails, but I'm going to send through Katie a copy of my very basic spreadsheet for multiple offers.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And anything else you want that we've talked about?
I have a quick question. On the handouts that were sent for this course, you know, I started to go to print them out and realized it was like 80 pages, another one's 45 pages. And it looked, there were 4 handouts, but it looked like some were Word documents, some were PDFs, and that they were the same. Is that true, or am I
You know,
misreading?
I'm not sure because I got all the documents the same time you did last night, and I'm going to talk with Katie so that we make sure that you have the right ones.
They're different from the pre-course that was online, right?
Yeah, I just didn't want to double print stuff out because it was massive.
No, I understand the, what I'm going to do is I'll meet with Katie and I will have her send the one document alone in a separate email that is the student manual that we should be following.
That'd be awesome.
That work for you, Patty?
Thank
Because
you
yeah, I
very much.
wasn't sure. There were 4 attachments.
Right.
And I wasn't even sure which one was that.
Okay, so it wasn't just me.
It wasn't just you.
I always think it's me. Okay.
No, because I
Thank
have
you.
my own binder that doesn't that has all of my stuff in it that doesn't match what you have. So
Okay. Well, this is a good class. Thank you so much.
well, you're welcome. And I'll see you guys next Friday, same place, better volume, promise.
Hey, Deborah, quick question. You mentioned something about when we were talking about advertising. I thought you said that you had like a quick and dirty list of something that you provided us EXPers on Workplace.
Yes.
You mentioned maybe sharing that with the group as well.
I certainly will.
Okay, thank you.
It's an advertising checklist
Yeah,
that was put out. It was actually, was put out by the Oregon Real Estate Agency. And I do have it. I'll make sure that you guys get a copy of that checklist to make sure that you're in compliance.
Perfect.
I can certainly do that.
I thank you so much for putting this together. I know it's taken, I mean, it's an extensive program that you guys did, and to do this in such a short time, that's so amazing. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm sure we all do.
Thank you. And we'll see you guys next Friday. And again, as much as you can, read ahead, because the best learning is when we're collaborating and talking, not when I'm preaching. Okay, so let's see you next week.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much.
See you later.
Bye.
Hey, Deborah.
Yeah?
So where did we, in this handout that you gave us, and actually I'm with Patty, I had 2 of them that I printed out. They were actually both the same. Where did we leave off? What page? Do you know what page that would be?
I'm approximately page 21.
Okay.
2021.
Okay. All right. That takes care of me. Thank you. Have a
You're
great
welcome.
weekend, everybody.
Hey, Deborah, I'm on page 10.
What I'm going to do, because you might all be looking at a different document.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, I'm going to have Katie send out in one document in a separate email the student manual, that the one document that everybody should be following. Because I know you guys got 4 things, so we'll get it a little better organized and make sure that everybody has the one document that follows my slides. Okay, that kind of follows the slides and the case studies.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.